Welcome to the fantasy audiobook, Pokémon, the legendary trainer who farms at home. Chapter 81. In the afternoon, an armored bird flew from the farm and landed in front of the villa, and a man and a woman sat on it. Brother Chen Shi, I miss you so much. As soon as Farong got off the bird, she opened her arms and pounced on Chen Shi. The latter looked terrified and quickly dodged sideways. Facing Farong's resentful eyes, Chen Shi coughed awkwardly twice. Men and women should not be intimate, don't do this. Dao, who had just walked over, looked at his friend who had not seen him for a long time with a teasing look. I hope that when Miss Sirona wants to hug you, you will also hide away, and then tell her that men and women should not be intimate. That's right. Farong nodded seriously in agreement. What do you know? Chen Shi said seriously. I treat Miss Sirona as a brother, so there is no such thing as no intimacy between men and women. Oh, is that so? Daigo stretched out his voice, then I must tell Sirona about this next time. No. Chen Shi hurried forward to hold Daigo, you must have been tired all the way here. Come in for tea. Daigo felt a little funny and was pulled into the villa. Farong, who was left there, stomped her feet fiercely and followed behind angrily. In the living room, Grandpa and Grandma were in the laboratory downstairs, not here, so Chen Shi poured tea for the two of them. How is it, have you been doing well during this period? Daigo sighed a little, thinking of the hard life during this period, and replied, I'm fine, I just went to the secret realm at home, and my strength has improved a lot. By the way, didn't you say you had something to ask me? Tell me. Chen Shi sipped the tea, pulled the keystone from under the necklace and handed it to Daigo. You should collect this kind of stone quickly, otherwise its value will rise sharply after the tournament. Dao looked at the stone in his hand carefully, nodded, and then returned it to Chen Shi. I know this kind of stone. I have a few at home. I will collect them. Then, he asked excitedly, are you going to use that power in the tournament? Hearing this, Chen Shi raised his eyebrows, why? Are you scared? Dao was stunned, then laughed, you seem very confident now. Do you want to have a fight? Faced with Daiwu's invitation, Chen Shi just waved his hand, let's play in the tournament. It's boring to play now. Daiwu smiled and said, no problem, then we will play in the tournament. Then he thought of something and sighed, I just came out of my own secret realm a few days ago, and then there were a lot of things waiting for me to deal with. I just finished it yesterday, and you just came back. So I thought of coming to you to reminisce about the past. As the heir of the Zifuchi family, Mu Jin would also give some things to Daiwu, letting him learn to deal with them, so as to train him. But this also caused Daiwu to be very busy sometimes, the kind of busy flying. Chen Shi had no idea what to say, so he could only comfort her, you are done with your work now. You can take some time off now. That's right. Farong also spoke immediately. You were right, I can take some time off for a long time. Dao elegantly picked up the teacup and took a sip. I always feel that when you come here to drink a cup of tea, my heart can't help but calm down. Chen Shi raised his eyebrows slightly, you can come here often, you are definitely welcome here. Dao smiled and nodded. By the way, Chen Shi turned to look at Farong again, did I revive your fossil for you? Quote. He remembered that he had dug up a piece of Doran Messiah fossil in Meteor Falls before and gave it to Farong. He asked her to ask the Zavoki family to arrange for a resurrection, but he didn't know how it was now. Doran Barudo sometimes still thinks about it. Speaking of this, Farong immediately became excited and took out a Pokeball and opened it. Come out, Doran Messiah. Quote, a flash of red light passed by, and a Dragon Messiah appeared in front of the three people. Duo. The little guy seemed to be a little timid. As soon as he came out and saw the three people, he immediately flew to Farong's head and lay down nervously. Chen Shi took a look and was a little surprised. Pokémon. Dragon Messiah. Level. 27, Late Intermediate. Potential. Semi-Champion. Feature. Eternal Pure Body. Gender. Male. Skills. Bite, Lightning Flash, Scare, Endless Entanglement, Shadow Clone, Strange Light. This is actually a Dragon Messiah with the potential to reach the semi-champion level. As long as this little guy is well trained, the future is promising. But the level is only intermediate, Farong will suffer in the future. How is it? Brother Chen Shi, my Dragonite was just resurrected a few days ago. Quote. Farong said proudly. It's really good. You should train it well. This little guy will definitely become your trump card. Chen Shi was also happy that Farong had such a Dragonite. Then he asked, what are your plans for the future? Hearing this, Daigo pondered for 2 seconds and said, I plan to go back to prepare for the World Championship. I always feel that the opponent this time must be not simple. I have to take advantage of this time to improve my strength. Farong scratched her head, I plan to stay and not go out to travel. I will just bask in the sun with Brother Chen Shi on the farm. As soon as these words came out, a tearful Zhang Gui suddenly appeared in Farong's shadow. Ko Jia, quote, I finally don't have to protect this girl anymore. He flew around the room excitedly, and the three of them just looked at the Gengar in confusion. Especially Farong, she was a little confused at this time, why is there a Gengar hidden in her shadow? Why didn't Xiaoling and the others find it? Chen Shi then remembered that when Farong went out to travel, Gengar seemed to be sent out to protect Farong at his suggestion. Now he is so happy, could it be because he heard Farong just say that she would stay at home, which means that Gengar's mission is over, so he is so happy. Chen Shi covered his face, okay, Brother Gui, you don't need to continue to protect Farong, don't fly. Ko Jia, quote, Zhang Gui glared at Chen Shi angrily, then suddenly thought of something, laughed twice, and then went underground to an unknown place. Farong then realized that this Gengar was here to protect her. Thinking of this, Farong's heart warmed slightly. Since she came out of the God-sending volcano, Farong has also experienced a lot. She has been cheated of money, beaten, and seen the lives of the lower class. Now she is no longer the silly girl when she first came out, and she has also understood a lot of things. When she went out to travel, she did not forget to let a king-level Gengar protect her closely. The Chen family is really good to her. By the way, Lao Chen, I have collected some stones recently, but the number is not as much as last time, only a few pieces, so I didn't bring them here. Dao suddenly said. Chen Shi was stunned and smiled. It's okay, this thing is easy to collect at the beginning, but it will be hard to find later. You can arrange people to look for it in the Kalos area, maybe there will be gains. Okay, I know, I will arrange people to collect it, and then we will follow the previous distribution method, half for each of us. Hearing this, Dao nodded and agreed, and did not ask why he had to look for it in the Kalos area, but not in other areas. Chen Shi suddenly fell silent for a while, and said, 50-50 is too disadvantageous for you, how about 30-70? I'll take 30 and you take 70. Dao frowned, how can this be possible? You provided this information. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know that this stone is so precious. You should take half. Hearing this, Chen Shi rubbed his temples. In fact, the last time Dao brought more than a dozen super stones, it was already beyond his expectations. It can be said that if this matter is compared to a transaction, he has actually made a profit. After all, he got more than a dozen super stones for free. But Daigo suffered a little. He arranged people to find these super stones, used his connections, and spent his money. Chen Shi was unwilling to continue to accept Daigo's kindness, but it was difficult to say it out loud. After all, in Daigo's mind, this information was provided by Chen Shi, so it was completely fine for him to take half. After thinking carefully, Chen Shi said, just give me half of the stones you collected before the tournament, and you don't have to give me any after that. That's settled. Seeing his serious expression, Daigo smiled bitterly, okay, then I'll listen to you. I'll give you half of the stones collected before the tournament, and I won't give you any after that. That's right. Chen Shi laughed immediately. Friends can't be fussy about everything, but some things must be distinguished. It's wrong to take other people's friendship for granted. Chen Shi had only a few friends in his 2 lives, so he still valued his friendship with Daigo. Daigo stood up and said with a smile, okay, Lao Chen, I'm leaving too. See you at the World Championship later. I hope we can have a good fight then. No problem. Chen Shi readily agreed and sent Daigo out without trying to stop him. Farong rushed upstairs with great interest and cleaned up the room she hadn't lived in for a long time. In the evening, Grandpa and Grandma cooked a large table of dishes to welcome Farong back home from her trip. Farong was very moved. Looking at the large table of delicious food, she drooled and started to show off. After she had 2 bowls of rice, she continued to add more rice. Chen Shi couldn't help but tease. If you keep eating, you can compete with Gengar to see who is fatter. Farong glared at him without saying anything, and then kept eating. However, this made Grandma Chen feel distressed. She felt that the little girl had suffered outside, so she became like this. Farong, eat slowly, don't be in a hurry, no one will snatch it from you. Thank you, Grandma, I know. Farong swallowed the food in her mouth and replied, but she still didn't slow down her eating speed. She hadn't eaten such delicious food for a long time. Chen Shi shook his head and felt a little funny. After eating by himself, he went upstairs. Chikoyi. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Pokus hurriedly flew over and threw himself into his arms, looking at him with tears in his eyes. What's wrong, Professor Bo, who bullied you? Chikoyi. Pokus screamed, and pointed his wings at the black-hearted cat lying on the bed in a big letter shape. Chen Shi's mouth twitched. You mean she took your food and your ice cream today? Cha-cha. Pokémon nodded frantically, and then chattered to the trainer about the crime of the black-hearted cat. Originally, Pokémon had finished training today and was happily preparing to eat the energy cubes prepared by the trainer in advance, but she didn't expect that this dead cat suddenly ran over and took away all her energy cubes. This made Pokémon very angry. I finally finished training and was waiting for a good meal, but this dead cat took away all her food in a flash. Of course, she was not convinced and was ready to teach this dead cat a lesson. But in the end, this dead cat used her superpowers that she couldn't resist to play tricks on her. Pokémon was also a man who knew the situation and knew that he couldn't beat it. She was not going to argue with this dead cat. After all, there would be food when the trainer came back. So she was going to eat an ice cream first, but she didn't expect this dead cat to come again, not only snatching her ice cream, but also mocking her for being weak. But what could the big plane do? She couldn't beat it, and couldn't snatch it, so she had to sulk alone. As soon as the trainer came back, she came to complain. Chen Shi held his forehead. He had been with Dream for a few days, and he knew that this was a naughty black-hearted cat, but it didn't have any bad intentions. Obviously, when they first met, it was still very serious. Now it's good. After getting familiar with each other, its true colors are revealed, and its true nature begins to be exposed. Yesterday, it even started to order him around. The more Chen Shi thought about it, the angrier he became. He rushed up and picked up the black-hearted cat's long tail, ran to the window and threw it out fiercely. Then he closed the window immediately. Dream was flying in the air at this time, looking confused. I was thrown out. In the room, Chen Shi felt a little regretful after throwing it, but it also felt very exciting. What he regretted was that the black-hearted cat was very strong. What if it got angry? What was exciting was that it felt really good to throw the fantasy beast with his hands. Choco. Just when he was still Pokus laughed happily and felt much more comfortable. Sure enough, the trainer is still the best. Chen Shi coughed awkwardly twice, prepared food for Pokus again, and promised to give her an extra ice cream tomorrow, which made Pokus even happier. But Chen Shi was miserable. Because now in front of him, there was an angry pink cat floating. Chen Shi scratched his head awkwardly and showed a smile that he thought was friendly. Well, I was just playing a game with you. How was it? Wasn't it fun? Ha ha ha. Quote. Ah, help, I was wrong. Before Chen Shi finished speaking, he felt a violent superpower controlling him directly, and then he was controlled by Mengwan and shook vigorously in the air like shaking a coke. I was wrong, Master Mengwan. No. Quote. Next, Chen Shi became a toy of Mengwan, being controlled to play with him at will, and performing various difficult movements, such as 180-degree splits and human spiral gyroscopes. Chen Shi shouted frantically, hoping to attract the attention of others so that Mengwan would let him go. But Mengwan had already wrapped the room with superpowers, and no sound could be heard. Chen Shi was miserable now, and he could only endure it silently, hoping that Mengwan would get out of his anger quickly. And Pokus, the only witness of this scene, dared not move at the side, and could only say sorry silently in his heart. Trainer, it's not that I don't help you, it's just that the dead cat is too scary. Ah, The next morning, a heart-wrenching scream came from the Chen family villa. Ha 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 ha, Koji, ha 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 ha. Zhang Gui laughed wildly with his belly in his hands. Let you suggest me to protect that stinky girl, and see if I won't lick you to death. On the bed, Chen Shi's body kept twitching, and his eyes rolled out. Pakis and Li Fian had been awakened by the screams, but they didn't dare to care, so they could only hide aside to watch the fun. Miu even smiled at Chen Shi's miserable appearance like Zhang Gui. After a long time, Chen Shi finally breathed a sigh of relief. But he was not angry, nor did he make a scene. He just lay on the bed with his eyes staring at the ceiling. Sad tears kept flowing from the corners of his eyes, looking very pitiful. Last night, he was tortured by Mengwan for a long time. In the end, he was in so much pain that he could not fall asleep. He tossed and turned in bed. He finally fell asleep in the second half of the night. In the morning, Zhang Gui gave him another enhanced tongue licking. Who can resist this? You know, although Zhang Gui licked him before, he would hold back and it was just a little numb. But this tongue licking was different. Chen Shi only felt like he touched a high-voltage wire in his sleep. It was so sour and pleasant. Ah! After a long while, a sigh sounded faintly in the room. Chen Shi stood up and looked at the proud Zhang Gui with his eyes slightly narrowed. You ghost, you are doing this to me, right? You wait for me. Just when he was thinking about how to retaliate against Zhang Gui, Mengwan floated over, blinked his innocent big eyes and stared at him, and then patted his belly. Meow. Chen Shi gritted his teeth and forced a smile. I'll prepare it for you right away, enough. Meow. Wanwan flew happily, completely forgetting what happened yesterday. Now his mind was full of food. Oh, and the icy, sweet thing yesterday. Wanwan suddenly thought of something and said it directly. Chen Shi's eyes lit up when he heard it, and he waved his hand. All are for you, I don't want any. Then he looked at Pakis with gloating. You didn't help last night, and you even hid aside to watch the show. Now I'm going to give away all your ice cream, let's see what you can do. At this time, Pakis didn't know anything, thinking that there was no fun to watch, and was a little disappointed. Chen Shi snorted coldly, come with me. As he said, Chen Shi took Wanwan to the refrigerator and opened it. There were densely packed ice creams inside, all prepared by Chen Shi in advance. Take it, it's all yours. Meow. Mengwan nodded excitedly, and then rubbed his cheek affectionately. Seeing Mengwan's completely different attitude from yesterday, Chen Shi could only curse in his heart that he was a black-hearted meow. Chikoyi. But just when Mengwan's hand was about to reach for the ice cream, Pakis's scream came from behind. Then Pakis rushed over and threw himself on the refrigerator to protect the ice cream. That look was like an old hen hatching chicks. Chikoyi. Pakis looked at the trainer pitifully, but Chen Shi was unmoved this time, pretending to be sorry and said, Mengwan also wants to eat this, I can't do anything, you can discuss it yourself. After saying that, Chen Shi sighed in a pretentious manner, but laughed wildly in his heart. You meow watched me being played yesterday, and you didn't even try to persuade me, you deserve it. Mengwan stared at Pakis with a gloomy look. The latter wanted to cry but had no tears. He staggered and flew up. He looked at ice cream reluctantly and gave way to Mengwan. Cha, shake. At this time, Pakis was so heartbroken that she couldn't breathe. That was her favorite ice cream, a whole refrigerator full of ice cream. Chen Shi was secretly happy and left humming a song to prepare food for Madame Hua Jia and others. Today is a good day, a good day. No, today is a shitty good day. After Chen Shi finished his work, he was just about to bask in the sun and lie down, but he didn't expect his grandmother to call him again. Xiao Xiao, this is something sent by the Alliance. Take a look. It should be the invitation letter for the World Championship. Invitation letter. Chen Shi was stunned. Does this thing still need an invitation letter? Can't everyone under the age of 20 participate? As if she saw her grandson's confusion, Grandma Chen explained, not everyone can participate in the World Championship. You can only participate if you receive an invitation letter from the league, or if you are recommended by an important member of the league. Otherwise you can't participate. These two are invitations. The Alliance sent them when you went to the Kanto region. Grandma just remembered today that you and Farong each got one. Quote. Hearing this, Chen Shi curled his lips speechlessly and took the two gold-plated invitations. After opening them and taking a look, Chen Shi quickly lost interest. Because there was just some nonsense written on it, saying how he was so outstanding and specially invited him to participate in the World Championships at the Silver Venue in the Kanto region on October 18. Except for the names, the two invitations looked similar, and they were also ugly. However, October 18 is not far away. Chen Shi touched his chin and thought. It is already the beginning of October, plus the time to rush. Chen Shi will have to go to the Kanto region with Farong on October 15. And now the Kanto region and Chengdu region have not yet separated, so it is the silver venue in the Kanto region. Thinking of this, Chen Shi put away the invitation letter and prepared to sprint hard in the last half month, and also urged Farong to avoid the little girl going up to embarrass herself. At this time, Grandma Chen suddenly said, "Xiao Shi, have you really decided?" Quote. Chen Shi was stunned, and understood what Grandma meant. He nodded heavily. "I have made up my mind, Grandma, don't worry." "Well, I won't say too much about the affairs of you young people. As long as you make up your mind, Grandpa and Grandma will always be behind you." "I know, Grandma, I'm going to train, you go ahead." In the following half month, Chen Shi has been training Pokémon at home, even putting aside potion making. For him now, the strength of Pokémon is undoubtedly more important. He even tempted Mew with 2 boxes of ice cream and asked him to help as a coach. Mew worked very hard for ice cream, and kept turning into various Pokémon to explain the key points of various skill releases to Madame Wajia and others. With the help of Mew and the core fragments of the secret realm, Madame Wajia and others have made rapid progress in the past half month. Not only are the speeds of various skills released significantly faster, but the levels are also advancing by leaps and bounds. Now Dragon Ball is level 63, almost reaching the middle stage of Quasi-King, and Swampert is level 61, also in the early stage of Quasi-King. Madame Wajia has broken through the Quasi-King level because of the broken horn of God X, and her potential has reached the champion level. Pacus, Leafeon, and Charizard have also reached the peak of the gym. Unfortunately, it is not so easy to break through the Quasi-King, and they may need some time to break through. The Metagross was a little worse. It had just reached level 58 today, and had not yet reached the peak of level 59. The core fragments of the secret realm had been consumed and turned into a pile of fragments. However, Chen Shi was already quite satisfied. It was broken, and its mission was completed. Next, it was time to go to the Kanto region. On the morning of October 16, Chen Shi brought Farong to the door of Devon Company in Kana's city. There was already a nobleman wearing a small suit and short silver hair standing there. Seeing the two of them, he smiled and stepped forward. "Old Chen, Farong, you are here. Brother Daigo, long time no see." Farong saw him and her eyes lit up, shouting happily. Chen Shi also said, "Daigo, I'm going to trouble you this time." "What are you talking about? What's the trouble? It's just a matter of convenience." Chen Shi smiled and nodded. The reason he came to Kana's city was because Daigo called him before. He said that he would go there by private plane, and asked him and Farong to come to Kana's city, and then they could go there together. Hearing this, Chen Shi refunded the flight ticket he had booked in advance without hesitation, and cursed in his heart that he was a rich man, and then he brought Farong over happily. Why take a passenger plane when there is a private plane? Let's get in the car first and go to our company's private airport. We'll talk on the way. Daigo pointed to the extended luxury car on the other side. Then the three of them got in the car together, and the driver started the car and drove away. Chen Shi leaned on the seat and asked, "Are we going directly to Baiyan Town?" "Yes, we can just go directly to Baiyan Town." Hearing this, Farong scratched her head, as the World Championship held in Baiyan Town. "Where is Baiyan Town?" Dao was a little surprised. "Don't you know? The World Championship is held in the Baiyan venue in Baiyan Town, Kanto region. It's written on the invitation letter. You can see it when you look at it." Farong was a little confused. Invitation letter? But I didn't receive any invitation letter. Chen Shi couldn't help covering his face and explained, "Your invitation letter is here with me, don't worry, just follow us." Oh. Farong was relieved. Chen Shi felt a little guilty. His grandmother asked him to give the invitation letter to Farong before, but he threw the invitation letter into his backpack and forgot about it. Fortunately, Farong was naive and didn't care. Then Chen Shi asked again. Dao, do you know the rules and procedures of the World Championship? I haven't paid much attention to it, and I don't know anything yet. Dao nodded slightly. The process of the World Championship is very simple. You can register with the invitation letter on the 18th, and the preliminaries will start on the 19th. But there is no resurrection match in this competition. Everyone has to start 1 vs 1 singles from the preliminaries. The winner advances and the loser leaves directly. Then until there are 128 people left to start the main competition. Farong was shocked and said quickly, what if I meet you two in the preliminaries? Wouldn't I be eliminated? Dao was stunned for a moment, and then patiently explained, the alliance has marked some people, and will not let some geniuses meet in advance. Don't worry, with your strength, there will be no problem entering the main competition. That's good, that's good. Farong stuck out her tongue cutely. As long as I don't meet some particularly powerful people in the preliminaries. Chen Shi glanced at her and said nothing. With the ethics of the alliance, how could they not intervene a little when beating their opponents? Otherwise, if this Side-Eye and Mikali are playing against each other, and Dodo and Kona are playing against each other, and then one of them is eliminated in the preliminaries. Isn't this funny? Such heavyweight players must be left to the end before they can play against each other. Daigo glanced at his friend and couldn't help asking, Old Chen, what's your look? Why do you still have an Eevee on your shoulder? Hearing this, Chen couldn't help but twitch his mouth, glanced at the dream on his shoulder, sighed secretly, and then explained. Aren't you studying the evolution of Eevee? Put it outside to brush up the intimacy, you don't need to care. Outside, Dream was still very quiet, and stayed on his shoulder obediently. Is that so? Daigo suddenly realized that old Chen had indeed published a conjecture about the moon Eevee before, and he didn't expect that he had specially found an Eevee to bring with him. Soon, the car drove into the private airport of Devon Company. After getting off the car, Chen looked at the high-tech private plane in front of him and fell into silence. The technology in the Pokémon world is so crooked. If they can make such a high-tech airplane, can't they the whole mobile phone? Until now, there is only a landline phone. I can't even call Sorona normally, for fear that it will be answered by Jia Zilin's grandmother. Old Chen, let's go, what are you waiting for? Dao's words suddenly rang in his ears. Chen Shi looked up and saw Farong rushing into the plane excitedly. I'm coming. Wow, this sofa is so soft. Oh, there are snacks here, brother Dao, can I have some? Dao nodded slightly. Eat it, it was prepared for you. Okay, thank you brother Dao. Farong happily picked up a small cake and stuffed it into her mouth. Chen Shi also sat on the soft and luxurious sofa, and saw a seat belt next to him, so he fastened it. Daigo came over with 2 goblets and a bottle of red wine. Would you like to drink a little? After all, you're going to see your good brother soon. Chen Shi was stunned, then reacted, opened his mouth to say something, but said nothing. Come on. Daigo smiled and nodded, poured 2 glasses of red wine, and handed one to Chen Shi. Cheers, cheers. The sound of the wine glasses colliding rang out. Chen Shi took a sip of the red wine, and in his mind, he couldn't help but think of the beautiful girl with blonde hair. I'm sure I can see her this time. In the evening, the 3 of them arrived at Baiyan Town. Looking at the huge sign of the Baiyan venue in the center, Chen Shi couldn't help but sigh, it's really spectacular. The entire Baiyan Town was built around the huge Baiyan venue in the center. It was really shocking from a distance. It's hard to imagine that this is just a battlefield, not some other important building. At this time, Baiyan Town was very lively. There were people wearing costumes from all over the country. Obviously, most people came for the game, including spectators and players. From time to time, Miss Junsh's shadow could be seen. They were trying to maintain order in the town. Dao smiled and said, come with me. I'm afraid it's too late to book a hotel now. I have prepared a place to stay in advance. Okay. Chen Shi didn't refuse. He was thinking about this problem when he saw so many people just now. Fortunately, Dao was prepared in advance. Soon, Dao brought the 2 to a 3-story luxury villa. This is it. Chen Shi nodded and asked casually, did you rent this? You're quite thoughtful. Dao raised his eyebrows, I bought this. After that, he walked forward and prepared to open the door. Chen Shi. Farong. Well, he really couldn't understand the thinking of such rich people. Just came to participate in a competition, and bought a villa directly. Can't you rent it? Or you can book a luxurious presidential room in advance. You rich dog. Chen Shi muttered softly, but still followed him quickly. Farong also followed behind. Pick a room at random, there are many rooms here. Dao said directly as soon as he entered the house. Chen Shi didn't have any requirements in this regard, so he just picked a room on the first floor, and Farong chose the room next to him. Dao also thought it was troublesome to go up and down the stairs, so he just lived on the first floor with him. After simply putting away their things, the three of them sat in the living room and chatted. Let's go out for dinner later. The official registration will start the day after tomorrow, and the game will start on the 19th. Let's play here for a few days. Dao suggested. I have no objection. Just do as you say. Chen Shi spread his hands and said indifferently. Farong had even less objection. She was now a follower of Chen Shi and Dao. She would follow them wherever they went. But Mengwan didn't want to go out, and Chen Shi didn't say anything, leaving it a small pile of energy cubes. After that, just as the three of them went out, a man and a woman came out of a villa next to them. The man wore a white hat, showing slightly long green hair, and a white cloak. He looked very handsome. The girl next to him had long purple hair and was very beautiful. Chen Shi always felt that the two people looked familiar, but he couldn't remember who they were for a while. Daigo recognized them and exclaimed, "Isn't this Mikuli?" The one next to them seems to be the daughter of the Hoenn flying gym master, named Naki. After hearing this, Chen Shi immediately remembered them. No wonder he always felt familiar with them. It turned out to be this young couple. Mikuli over there also noticed their gaze, turned around and looked over, stunned for a moment, and pulled Naki to them. It turned out to be Mr. Daigo and Mr. Chen Shi. It's fate that we actually live together. My name is Mikuli, and this is my girlfriend Naki. Hello, it's nice to meet you, Mr. Mikuli and Miss Naki. The three of them greeted the young couple. Then Chen Shi said, "We are going out for dinner, so we won't disturb your date. See you later." Mikuli smiled, "Okay, see you later." After that, the two groups separated. Naki couldn't help but sigh. It's the heir of the Zavoki family and the youngest intermediate breeder. These are the most shining talents in the alliance, and they actually live here. Mikuli's mouth corners slightly raised, and strong confidence emanated from him, the most shining genius. I really want to fight with them. Naki felt the confidence in her boyfriend and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. The gap between herself and Mikuli, and the two people just now, is too big. Farong, you can eat less at home, because grandma is still very hard to cook. But if you follow Daigo outside, then you can make as much as you want. He is from a wealthy family, and you can't eat him poorly. Yeah. Farong looked at the table of delicious food in front of her and swung her chopsticks to show off. Daigo shook his head helplessly and ignored the two people who were playing tricks. Instead, they talked about Mikuli. Isn't it a coincidence that I can meet Mikuli next door to a villa? And his girlfriend is actually Naki. This is the first time I heard of it. Chen Shi took a bite of the food and replied casually, "It's really a coincidence. But that Naki, she gives me a feeling that something is wrong." What's wrong? Daigo became interested. Since the last trip to Fuyin Town, he found that he suddenly became fond of gossip. Chen Shi thought about it and said, "She has a low self-esteem. Not only to us, but also to Mikuli." Is it true? Daigo was shocked. Naki is the heir of the flying gym after all, how could she have a low self-esteem? In terms of background, she is definitely not bad. In terms of strength, she is the heir of a gym after all, and she can get together with a genius like Mikuli, so she must be not bad. How could she have a low self-esteem? Daigo couldn't understand it. Chen Shi smacked his lips and explained, "I guess Naki is very strong-willed. She is not as good as Mikuli and us, so she has some inferiority complex." He really didn't say anything nonsense. Naki broke up with Mikuli because Mikuli was too strong. Then Mikuli worked hard and focused on the gorgeous competition, and finally made the gorgeous competition flourish. However, the reason for Naki's breakup was really ridiculous in Chen Shi's opinion. "Because you are better than me, I want to break up with you." Naki's brain was more or less touched. Daigo was silent for a while, and after a while he said speechlessly, You are not talking nonsense, are you? This sounds unreliable. Shouldn't she be happy to have an excellent boyfriend? And isn't it normal for someone to be better than you? What's there to be inferior about? That's right, I can't beat you either, I'm not inferior yet. Farong suddenly raised her head and muttered. Hearing this, Chen Shi nodded in agreement. You are right, I agree with you. But her thoughts may be different from normal people, let's not worry about it. Different from normal people. Daigo looked at his friend with a strange expression. Isn't this saying that Naki is mentally ill? While the three were having dinner, Sirona also arrived at Silver Town. How is it, Lucario, has he come here? Lucario looked resentful. So you let me out just for this? Although he complained a few words in his heart, Lucario still twitched his nose and released the waveguide, carefully looking for the familiar smell. Then he shook his head, indicating that he didn't find it. Sirona was not discouraged, and took Lucario to look everywhere, focusing on those hotels. Sirona thought that Chen Shi would definitely stay in a hotel when he came, so she just needed to look for all the hotels in Silver Town. Anyway, with Lucario here, she didn't need to check the rooms one by one. But she really guessed wrong. Chen Shi really didn't stay in the hotel, but lived in the villa with Daigo. But her efforts were not in vain, because Chen Shi was eating in the largest hotel box in Silver Town. In the end, Lucario still took her to the door of the box where the three were eating and knocked on the door. The three people inside were a little confused. Aren't all the dishes served? No waiter was called, so who would knock on the door? Farong didn't think too much and ran to open the door. As soon as they opened it, the three were stunned, because outside the door was Sharona and a handsome Lucario. Daigo and Farong's eyes immediately shifted to Chen Shi. This is coming here again because of the smell. Chen Shi stood up quickly. Miss Sharona, why are you here? Come in and sit down. When Sharona first saw him, a hint of joy flashed in her eyes, but soon became cold. I've told you not to be so polite. Just call me severe difficulty in making choices. Thanks to some people, I'm very famous now. Everyone knows that severe difficulty in making choices is a supernova in the research community. Sharona walked in, slowly sat next to Chen Shi, and smiled softly. Don't you think so? Sharona was obviously smiling, but Chen Shi felt that the temperature of his body had dropped by 5 degrees, and a chill rushed from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. I can explain this, Chen Shi said dryly. Daigo and Farong sat together somehow, holding back their laughter and looking at the two people opposite. They looked like a bystander. Humph, Sharona didn't want to pay attention to him at all. When she was at home, she was teased by her grandmother because of this. Even Dr. Yamanashi teased her a few times. This made Sharona very angry, and she was waiting to meet him to show him some color. Chen Shi had come back to his senses at this time. Seeing that Sharona didn't want to pay attention to him, he gritted his teeth and didn't say anything. He just stretched out his hand under the table and hooked Sharona's finger. Sharona was stunned and her ears immediately turned red. She didn't expect this guy to be so bold. There were two people on the opposite side. The two onlookers on the opposite side were a little confused at this time. Weren't they angry just now? We are still waiting to see the show. Why did you blush suddenly? Because they were sitting opposite, Daigo and Farong didn't see the action under the table at all. But Lucario standing behind saw it. I'm a dog, so you feed me dog food, right? The blue dog looked constipated, stretched out his hand to take out his Pokeball from Sharona's waist, and pressed it without hesitation. But after Lucario left, Chen Shi became bolder and went straight to Sharona's ear, whispering, Miss Sharona, I haven't seen you for so long, have you missed me? The warm breath spread on Sharona's neck, making her tremble all over. Although she was a little happy in her heart, she still glared at Chen Shi fiercely. She didn't say she didn't miss him. The two spectators on the opposite side were already excited at this time, staring at the two people with wide eyes. Now they were very curious about what Chen Shi had just done to make Lucario return to the Pokeball by himself, and what he had just said that caused Chen Shi to roll his eyes. The gossip fire in Daigo and Farong's hearts was burning. Sharona felt that the hand under the table was getting more and more dishonest, and pinched it hard. The latter felt pain and immediately shrank back. Chen Shi coughed awkwardly twice. Eat, what are you two doing, eat quickly. Daigo and Farong were a little disappointed, that's it. Then the atmosphere at the dinner table became much more lively, and the four of them had a good chat together. After a while, Daigo glanced at his friend and asked, Ms. Sirona, have you found a place to live now? If not, why don't you live with us? Our villa is very big, and there are many empty rooms. Farong is here too. Sirona wanted to refuse, but swallowed the refusal when she heard the last sentence, okay, I just haven't found a place to live yet, so I'll bother you. Dao gave his friend a look that said I can only help you up to this point, and said, no need to bother, it's lively anyway with more people. Chen Shi was a little speechless, but didn't say anything. Soon, the four of them finished their meal, and Sharona suggested going out for a walk. Dao immediately grabbed Farong who wanted to follow. Farong and I won't go, we have something else to do, you go. Farong looked confused, am I busy? Then why don't I know it myself? But before she could say anything, she was immediately forcibly pulled away by Dao. Your two friends are quite interesting. Sharona gently stroked her hair, and a beautiful arc curved at the corner of her mouth, which looked particularly charming under the night light. Chen Shi, who was standing aside, couldn't help but stare at her for a moment, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart that God really favored the girl in front of him. Sharona's cheeks were slightly red, and she said coldly, have you seen enough? How can you see enough? Chen Shi smiled and said, Miss Sharona is still so charming. Now it was Sharona's turn to be stunned. After not seeing each other for a while, this person is getting bolder and bolder. Without waiting for her to react, Chen Shi continued, now the Silver Town is very lively, let's go shopping and taste the food in the Kanto area. As he said, Chen Shi pulled Sharona towards the stall in the distance. When passing by a shop selling ice cream, the two stopped. The boss greeted enthusiastically, customers, look at what flavor you want, the shop basically has it. Chen Shi looked at the dazzling array of ice cream and asked, which one do you want to eat? Oh, Sharona was immediately entangled. Chen Shi covered his face and waved his hand directly, boss, give us 2-3 ball green tea flavor. Sharona was relieved immediately. Okay, please wait a moment. Looking at Sharona's desperate appearance, Chen Shi couldn't help but complain in his heart, why don't you worry about which skill to choose in the battle? Why do you worry about the little things in life? Chako Yi. Chako Yi. At night, on the first floor of the villa, Apakigo and Pakis stared at each other, and then kept communicating. Now only the two of them live on the first floor, because Daigo and Farong have moved to the second floor. Sharona looked at Pakis with shining eyes, is this Pakis? Really cute. Chen Shi glanced at her Pakigo and was shocked. Because this Pakigo not only evolved, but also soared directly to the middle elite, and its potential reached the semi-champion. You know, this Pakigo was given by him. It has been more than 2 months since it was born, and it has reached the level of the middle elite. I don't know what Sharona did. She is so powerful, she should be able to evolve into Pakis with the light stone soon. Then Chen Shi said gently, I see your Pokémon is about to evolve, and you can have one soon. Chako Yi. Pokémon just heard this and stared at Sharona with burning eyes. For Pokémon, the desire to evolve is engraved in their bones. Except for a small number of Pokémon who are unwilling to evolve, other Pokémon are very much looking forward to evolution. Especially Pokémon has met the predecessors of the same race, and now it is somewhat impatient. Sharona rubbed Pokémon's head, don't worry, wait for you to adapt to your body for a while, and then you can use the light stone to evolve. Chako Yi. Pokémon nodded happily. After that, the two released all the Pokémon and prepared food for them. Draneloto, Garchomp and the others greeted each other very naturally as if they had met old friends. Chen Shi finally saw the entire lineup of Sirona. Garchomp in the middle stage of Quasi-King, Lucario, Melodic, and Glaceon in the early stage of Quasi-King, and Gorgon and Snorlax at the top of the gym. It should be said that Sharona is worthy of being the future champion of Sinnoh. The mental outlook and potential of these Pokémon are very good, and they are obviously carefully cultivated. But what he didn't know was that Sharona was much more shocked than him, staring blankly at Charizard and Metagross. Sharona thought about it carefully. If she remembered correctly, when they met in Fuyu Town last time, the level of these Pokémon was still very low, right? They were all intermediate and advanced strength. But what did she see now? Almost all of them have reached the top of the gym. What kind of progress is this? After that, Sharona, who came to her senses, looked at Chen Shi with a gradually fiery look. Chen Shi trembled all over, and turned back to see Sharona's eyes. He and Sharona have known each other for so long that he naturally knew that she was not greedy for his body, but the look in her eyes when she saw an evenly matched opponent. Sharona is a battle maniac, and he had already understood it during the trip. When they first traveled together, Sharona often pestered him to fight, but at that time he relied on Swampert's faster growth and had always won more than lost. But later, after Garchomp and Lucario gradually grew up, Chen Shi found that he was a little defeated and was unwilling to fight with Sharona no matter what. Now she showed this look again. How could Chen Shi not understand what it meant? And then he had an idea and changed the subject. Gargoyle, I haven't seen you for a while, do you want me to give you a massage? When these words came out, not only Garchomp, but also Lucario, Glaceon and Melodic were all brightened and ran to Chen Shi's side. As for Flora Rock Monster and Sea Slug, they were not familiar with him, so they didn't come up. Land Shark, Lucario, Minnow, Buoy, the 4 Pokémon rushed over, but Garchomp was one step faster in the end, lying in front of him with his lunch box. The other 3 Pokémon stared at Garchomp indignantly. If eyes could kill dragons, Garchomp's soul must have entered the spirit world by now. Chen Shi comforted him with a smile. Don't worry, everyone has a share, let Garchomp go first. The 3 Pokémon Lucario gave up, but they still glared at Garchomp angrily, and then started eating their own food again. Chen Shi squatted down, and kept pressing Garchomp's hands to help him relax his tense muscles. Garchomp's throat snored comfortably, and he took a bite of energy cubes from time to time. It was as comfortable as it could be. Chen Shi pressed and said, do you still keep the things I gave you? Sharona was stunned and said softly, I'm keeping them all, don't worry. Then you have to keep them well, maybe this World Championships in the championship, you can see its real use. Quote. Chen Shi said without raising his head, but he thought of something in his heart. Other Pokemon's Mega Evolutions are all enhanced, but Garchomp is different. After Mega Evolution, its speed has slowed down. It can be said to be the first dragon of reverse evolution. It's really pitiful to say that Garchomp can't learn Dragon Dance, which has been ridiculed for a long time. Now even Mega Evolution has to slow down, which is criticized again, which is really miserable. But it seems that Garchomp can't learn Dragon Dance, and everyone from Desert Dragonfly to Zygarde can learn Dragon Dance. Thinking of this, Chen Shi couldn't help laughing. Sharona was a little confused. What are you laughing at? It's okay, I just thought of something happy, you will know later. Quote. Sharona's pretty eyebrows slightly frowned, feeling a little unhappy. Chen Shi is a good person in every way, but sometimes he speaks mysteriously, which makes people confused. But she also knows that he will definitely not tell her if she asks, so she can only roll her eyes secretly. She made up her mind that if she met Chen Shi in the arena, she must teach him a lesson. Suddenly, Sharona thought of something again. Pokigu learned some skills that I don't know, just like you said. Is that the 18th attribute you mentioned? And Garchomp hates the strange energy in Pokigu's body very much. Is this because the new attribute restrains the dragon type? Chen Shi looked at Sharona in surprise. Unexpectedly, she observed it very carefully, and explained it at the moment. Yes, I call this new attribute the fairy type. It restrains the dragon type, the evil type and the fighting type. Quote. Pokémon is a fairy and flying Pokémon. It is restrained by poison, electricity, steel, rock, and ice. You have to pay attention to it. Sharona nodded slowly and asked curiously, you don't seem to care about telling me this news. Chen Shi was stunned for a moment, then laughed. Yes, because it is about to be released. The next day, the flow of people in Silver Town increased. The 4 of them went out to take a look and then lost interest in going shopping. Now even the places to eat were full, and the 4 of them couldn't even find a place to eat. Fortunately, Daigo used his money ability and hired a nanny to cook for them at a high salary. So the 4 of them stayed at home for a day, chatting and drinking tea, and the Pokémon exchanged training experiences with each other. Mew disappeared in the past 2 days. It only came back when eating, and Chen Shi didn't care about it. It's just right to be away, and you can stay out of other people's business. Time soon came to the morning of October 18th, and the four of them were ready to go out. But as soon as they went out, they met Mikali and Naki, who came out together. After the two sides greeted each other, Mikali said, "What a coincidence, you should also go to sign up, right? Do you want to go together?" Okay. The four of them accepted it happily. For Mikali, the four of them thought it would be good to get to know him. But along the way, Naki would glance at Sharona from time to time, with unknown emotions in her eyes. At the entrance of the silver venue, Farong looked at the long line and complained a little. There are too many people. How many people are participating in this competition? Chen Shi also sighed. The line was lined up in a long queue. If they went to line up now, they might not get their turn at noon. Didn't they say that only geniuses under 20 years old would be invited? When did there become so many geniuses today? At this time, Sharona said lightly, their invitations seemed to be different from ours. Everyone was stunned, and then they realized that the invitations held by those people in the queue were indeed different from theirs. Their invitations were gold-plated and looked very exquisite, while those people's invitations were much more ordinary and could not be compared with theirs. It was like the difference between having paid and not having paid. At this time, several staff members walked out of the venue, and one of them shouted while holding a gold-plated invitation. "Everyone, be quiet. Those who have this kind of invitation, please come to my side and line up." As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar around. What's going on? Why is the invitation letter of the staff member different from mine? Does anyone else have this kind of invitation letter? Isn't this discrimination? There must not be many people with that kind of invitation letter, so don't they need to line up? Brother, you don't know this, right? That kind of invitation letter is probably only for the top geniuses. How could it be our turn? That makes sense. Those who hold that kind of invitation letter should be the seeded players of this competition. Hey, look, someone is going over there. Just then, a green-haired boy with a proud face walked up to the staff with his head held high, and then took out a gold-plated invitation letter. Then the boy glanced at the people who were still queuing over there with disdain, and said lightly, "A bunch of trash, line up properly." The boy's tone was indifferent, but it could not hide his superiority. But this also angered those who were waiting in line. Who the hell are you? You're so arrogant. That's right, be careful with your words when you go out, lest you get into trouble. Who is this guy? How did he get that kind of invitation? I remember, he seems to be one of the top 4 in the last silver conference. His name is Janchi. I heard he's very powerful. As the identity of the boy was revealed, the crowd suddenly became quiet, and no one dared to provoke Janchi. Obviously, the title of the top 4 in the silver conference intimidated them. Janchi glanced at the people over there with disdain, and just as he was about to say a few sarcastic words, a group of people walked past him without even giving him a glance. This made Janchi feel insulted. These people dared to ignore him. Don't they know that I was one of the top 4 in the last silver conference? Kenji grabbed a silver-haired boy behind him and said angrily, "How dare you ignore me? Do you know who I am?" Daigo frowned, looking impatient. "Who you are has nothing to do with me, don't block the way here." You. Kenji was about to start cursing when someone in the crowd recognized them all. Oh my god, it's the champion of the last Kaiyu conference in the Hoenn region, Zifuchi Daigo. I didn't expect him to come here too. And, the blonde beauty over there seems to be the champion of the last Lily of the Valley conference in the Sinnoh region, the goddess of battle, Sorona. I remember, that's Mikali from the Hoenn region, and Nachi, the heir of the flying gym. I see it's my idol's turn. 2 years ago, I met that black-haired boy in the Cultivator Guild. He is the youngest intermediate cultivator in the Alliance and is known as a genius who will become a master cultivator in the future, Chen Shi. Quote, "My god, what kind of team is this? Are all the evildoers gathered together? Compared with them, that Janchi is nothing. Ha ha ha, now there's something interesting to watch. He was so arrogant just now, but now he hits the wall, right?" Hearing the whispers of the people around him, Janchi's face turned pale with anger. His hands were clenched into fists and his body was shaking slightly. Daigo spoke again. "Do you have anything else to say?" He forced a smile on his ugly face. "No. It's okay, I won't bother you to sign up." Quote. After saying that, Janchi ran away. He really didn't have the face to gloat over the misfortunes of the people around him. Chen Shi in front also retracted his gaze. They didn't care about this kind of clown at all. After that, the 6 people handed the invitation letter to the staff. After a careful inspection, the staff politely took out 6 number plates and handed them to them. This is your competition number. Please keep it. Remember to report to the venue on time at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Chen Shi glanced at his number plate. It was number 18, not bad. Let's go back first. There are too many people here. Sharona nodded slightly, and Daigo and Farong didn't want to stay here either. Because the eyes of the people around them would glance at them from time to time, like looking at monkeys. At this time, Mikuli said, Naki and I plan to go to Bayan Town for a walk, so we won't go with you. Okay, I wish you all a good time. Quote, after that, the 2 groups of people separated, and Mikuli took Naki to go shopping, and the 4 of them walked towards the villa. On the way, Sharona said lightly, the girl named Naki seems to have some inferiority complex. Dao lives in Bangbu. No, how did you see it? Why can't I see that she is inferior? Lao Chen said so, and you said so too. How did you see that? Lao Chen also said that Naki had some inferiority complex. Why didn't I notice it? Dao asked puzzledly. Farong also pricked up her ears. She also wanted to know the answer to this question. Sharona was silent for 2 seconds and said lightly, she has been secretly looking at me, and the expression in her eyes is very complicated. There is envy, reluctance, and loneliness. When passers-by recognized our identities, Naki was very uncomfortable. At that moment, her eyes were full of inferiority. Dao suddenly realized that he was still arguing with that Janchi at that time. He didn't pay attention to Naki at all. He didn't expect her to be like this. Farong didn't understand it and asked puzzledly, why does she feel uncomfortable? For the heartless Farong, it is really hard to understand Naki's thoughts at that time. Chen Shi explained with a smile, maybe she feels that she shouldn't stand with us. Who made you so famous? Sharona thought about it, nodded slightly, and agreed with this statement. Dao smacked his lips and shook his head slowly, then I really can't understand her thoughts. Maybe Lao Chen is right. Naki's thoughts are a little different from normal people. I guess Mikuli will suffer in the future. Chen Shi waved his hand, anyway, it's none of our business, so don't worry about it. Let's go back first. Ask Auntie to make more delicious food in the evening. We will have a good meal. The competition will start tomorrow. Farong's eyes lit up and she cheered immediately, great, a big dinner in the evening. Looking at the excited Farong, the 3 of them smiled helplessly and then walked towards the villa. Early the next morning, the 4 of them were ready to go and followed the flow of people into the silver venue. There are many staff members here, guiding the audience and players to the corresponding channels, and there are also many Miss Junches maintaining order. Chen Shi also saw more than 30 Joeys passing by, which should also be the logistics staff prepared by the Alliance. Dao sighed a little, this pomp is much higher than the regional conference, even Miss Joey has transferred more than 30 people. Chen Shi and Farong did not speak. Neither of them had participated in the regional conference and did not know these things. It was Sharona who nodded in agreement. This is much higher than the Lily of the Valley Conference. However, when I think that this is specially held by the Alliance and a large number of geniuses from various regions are invited, I think it is normal to have such specifications. Afterwards, the 4 found a staff member and showed him the number plate. But after seeing the number on the number plate, the staff member's attitude was obviously much more respectful. Hello, we have a single lounge prepared for you here, please follow me. As he said, the staff member made a gesture of invitation, and the 4 people did not hesitate and followed him directly to take an elevator to the 3rd floor. As soon as he got out of the elevator, Chen Shi found that there were rows of rooms with numbers on them, from 1 to 30. The staff introduced, this is the lounge we prepared for the top 30 players. You can find the room corresponding to your number plate. There are real-time broadcasts of various battle venues, and you can also check the arrangements of your opponents. Farong looked at her number plate and was a little confused. But I'm number 73. There shouldn't be room number 73 here, right? Hearing this, the staff wanted to say something but stopped, and after a long time, they still didn't say anything. You can't say that you were allowed to come here for the sake of the other 3. This is more or less hurtful. Daigo held back his laughter and helped the staff out. Farong, just come with me, it's okay. Farong puffed up her cheeks and nodded sullenly. She also understood that only the top 30 players have a single lounge here, and she is number 73, so of course there is no single lounge. That is to say, she can only come up with Brother Daigo. But it is not her fault. Farong is not famous yet, and it is good enough to have a gold-plated invitation. Okay, let's go. After saying that, Chen Shi found room 18, opened the door and walked in. Daigo took Farong, and Sharona also went to her own lounge. The space here is relatively large, about 50 to 60 square meters, with a sofa in the middle and a huge display screen hanging on the wall. After looking at the surrounding environment, Chen Shi sat on the sofa and let all his partners out. TSS. As soon as he came out, Swampert was already excited. Finally, the day of the competition has come. Although he has forgotten the name of the competition, but it doesn't matter, as long as it's a competition, he likes it. You can sit down when you need to sit down, and rest when you need to rest. These 2 days are probably preliminaries, there are no powerful players, I plan to let Charizard and Metagross play more. They have no experience in competition, let them adapt. Roar, Meta. Charizard and Metagross nodded. Swampert was a little disappointed, but he had no objection to the trainer's arrangement. Anyway, there would definitely be a chance to play later. As for Doranbaruto and Madame Waji, they had no objection to this, and even started looking for a place to rest. Doranbaruto lay directly on the carpet with his eyes closed, and Madame Waji sat elegantly next to Chen Shi. Soon, the time reached 8 o'clock, the display screen on the wall of the lounge lit up, and an old man with a long beard appeared in front of him. He smiled gently. Hello everyone, welcome players from all regions to participate in today's World Championship. I am Dama Lanchi. I believe you are familiar with me, so I won't introduce myself. Next, Dama Lanchi said a lot of nonsense, which basically meant that you are all geniuses of the Alliance, and you will do this and that in the future. After that, Yulongdu was arranged as a torchbearer to light the sacred fire under the attention of the public. Okay, I declare that the first World Championship will start now. With Dama Lanchi's order, the audience of the silver venue burst into cheers, like surging waves, one wave higher than the other. The audience waved the colorful flags in their hands, and their faces were filled with smiles of excitement and expectation. The whole venue seemed to be on fire, and the atmosphere was extremely warm. The display screen in front of Chen Shi also showed the morning game schedule. Oh, 9 o'clock, number 48 is on the battlefield, is it number 564? Chen Shi quickly found his number, and then took another look at his opponent. 9 o'clock is not far away, and we have to enter the battlefield 10 minutes in advance. We can go after a rest. There are about 4,000 contestants in this competition. More than half of them will be eliminated today, and the list of the main competition will be decided tomorrow. It's really cruel. Although it's cruel, Chen Shi's face does not show fear, but a little excitement. When it was almost 9 o'clock, Chen Shi put away Duolong Barutuo and the others, then walked out of the room. After getting off the elevator, he followed the instructions and found the entrance to the number 48 battlefield. A staff member had been waiting at the door for a long time. After checking Chen Shi's number plate, the staff member said, "Please go to the left channel." Chen Shi nodded, walked to the left channel, and soon arrived in front of a metal door. At exactly 9 o'clock, the metal door opened instantly, and Chen Shi walked in without hesitation. He soon saw his opponent, a girl with a single ponytail who looked very heroic on the opposite side of the field. She came up and said arrogantly, "It seems that you are not very lucky. You met me in the first game. You are destined to stop here." Chen Shi's face was a little strange, but he didn't say anything. For such people, it is useless to talk, just beat them up. Seeing that he didn't speak, the girl thought he was afraid. Just as she was about to speak again, the referee said, "Please prepare both players. This game adopts 1 vs 1 singles. Are you ready?" Chen Shi nodded slightly, and the girl put her hands on her waist. "Of course, I can't wait to defeat him." The referee nodded slightly. "Please send out your Pokémon." As the referee's voice fell, the girl took out a Pokéball and summoned her Pokémon. "Go, my trump card." An elite peak Roserade appeared on the field. Rose. Chen Shi sighed secretly and released the Metagross directly. Meta. The Metagross flew in the air and looked at Roserade, with some disappointment in his eyes. It thought that it would meet a strong opponent in its first official game. The result is just like this. The girl on the opposite side was stunned. As a native of the Hoenn region, how could she not know the quasi-god Metagross of the Hoenn region? And this is a shiny Metagross. What is the origin of the opponent? But the referee didn't care what she thought and immediately announced the start of the game. Metalgross, Bullet Punch, hurry up. Meta. Metalgross nodded slightly and rushed out like an arrow from a string. At this time, the girl reacted and shouted anxiously. Roserade, get out of the way. Unfortunately, all this was in vain. The bullet punch of the Metagross directly knocked Roserade away and hit the wall behind her hard, losing her ability to fight. The girl was stunned for a while. The referee glanced at Roserade and immediately announced that contestant No. 18 Chen Shi won. Chen Shi shrugged, took back the Metagross, and walked out of the battlefield directly. The girl stared at his back blankly, tears flashing in her eyes. I just lost like this. Thinking of what she said at the beginning. The girl covered her face and ran out of the battlefield. In the lounge, Chen Shi released Doranbaruto and the others again. At this time, the display screen had already shown the time and place of his next game. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the 25th battle. Just as Chen Shi was holding the remote control and wanted to watch the other players' games, the door of the lounge was pushed open and the 3 people from Sharona walked in. Old Chen, have you finished playing? Dao found a seat and sat down, and spoke first. It's over, you guys should have finished too, right? The 3 of them nodded in unison. Farong complained a little, this world championship is so famous, I thought the people here were so powerful. But it's not like that. Sharona said softly. This is just the preliminaries. When the main competition starts, you will find that your opponents are getting stronger and stronger. Also, don't underestimate anyone. What if the other party has some hidden cards? Don't capsize in the gutter. Okay then. Farong nodded helplessly. Dao went behind the sofa and said indifferently, there are probably 3 rounds of games today, and there will be about 500 people left after the 3 games. Tomorrow there will be 2 rounds of games, and the list of the main competition will be decided the day after tomorrow. It can be said that the main competition is the real world championship. When I came here just now, I saw several acquaintances, and some of them gave me the feeling that they are not simple. Chen Shi nodded slightly. The rest room here is full of players with the top 30 numbers. You can tell that they are not simple just by thinking with your toes. It is very likely that he is the seeded player marked by the league. He is not surprised that the future champions and kings are all here. My next game is at 1 p.m, what about you? Daigo, 12 o'clock noon. Sharona, 12:30 noon. Farong, I'm also 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Chen Shi thought for a while, then let's not leave, let's go out for dinner after the second round. Let's watch the game together now. The 3 of them had no objection to this, and they all sat down and looked at the display screen. Chen Shi took the remote control and switched to the battle broadcast. But after watching more, he also found that this world championship is indeed not easy. Even the weakest player has reached the elite level with his Pokémon. He has seen gym-level Pokémon several times, which shows that the Alliance is not bragging. These are really carefully selected players invited from all over the world. Before, Chen Shi's requirements were too high, and the benchmarks were all Daigo and Sharona, so he thought the players were not very strong. Now I find that the strength of these players is online. Compared with ordinary people, they are already very strong. Just then, Chen Shi found an acquaintance. Isn't this Kona? Her first round of competition has just started. Daigo looked at the display screen in surprise. On the screen, Kona sent out a lip-smacking sister, who solved the opponent with a freezing ray, and then left the field in style. Chen Shi was a little regretful that he didn't see Kona's dragon-slaying shell. You know, it's not easy to cultivate a dragon-slaying shell. First, you have to find a shelter with continuous attack characteristics, learn the skill of breaking the shell and then evolve it, otherwise you don't deserve the title of dragon-slaying shell. But this skill can only be learned naturally, and it is still relatively late. Shelter must be almost gym level to learn to break the shell, and then evolve into a thorny shell, and then wear the momentum shawl. In this way, the famous dragon-slaying shell was born. It should be said that the requirements are really high. The difficulty of cultivating a shell-breaking thorny shell is no less than cultivating a late-blooming quasi-god. But once it is cultivated, the intensity is also very high, and the effort and reward are proportional. Chapter 91. 2 days passed quickly. The preliminaries have ended so far, and the 4 of them have made it to the main competition without any surprise. During this period, Chen Shi did not encounter any noteworthy opponents and entered the main competition like a crusher. It was almost the same for Sharona and the others. On the 3rd day of the World Championship, in the lounge number 18 on the 3rd floor of the Silver Conference Hall, Daigo said lightly, "Today is the start of the main competition, with 1 game in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. The next opponents will probably become more and more difficult, so you should be careful." Chen Shi nodded slightly. "I know. I'd better take a look at my opponent today." As he said that, he took out the remote control and called up today's battle arrangement. Chen Shi looked at it carefully and was a little surprised. Because he still remembered this person. It was the person who had a little conflict with Daigo at the registration office a few days ago. His name was Kenji. I heard that he was still the top 4 of the last Silver Conference. I didn't expect it to be such a coincidence that he would appear again as Chen Shi's opponent. However, Chen Shi didn't have a good impression of this person. He was very arrogant and looked down on others. I don't know how strong they are. He looked at the venue again. It was venue 9 and the game time was 9:30. It was only 8 o'clock now, so there was no rush. However, Chen Shi was quite surprised by Farong's opponent, because the name was Nanami Ogi. Isn't this the granddaughter of Professor Ogi and Xiaomao's sister? Why did she come to participate in the World Championship? Chen Shi couldn't help rubbing his temples and continued to read. Daigo and Sharona's opponents were relatively ordinary. At least Chen Shi had never heard of these 2 people, and they would probably be easily defeated. On this battle list, he also saw a lot of familiar names. The future champion of Kalos region, Karuna, the superpowered Catalya, and the future faith of Galar region, Dandy. This made him feel painful. These are all future famous figures. He didn't expect that they would gather in the silver venue now, and he might even fight with them. It's really too exciting. Before he could get excited, Daigo spoke again. "I heard that the Ghost King of the Kanto region, Granny Kikuko, will also be here today. Moreover, the main game will be broadcast live to the entire league. As long as there is a TV at home, you can basically watch our battle." Granny Kikuko. Chen Shi suddenly fell silent. If I remember correctly, Granny Kikuko hates Professor Oak. And she has an unpredictable temper and mood swings. Professor Oak once solemnly told him that he didn't need to be afraid of provoking anyone in the league because he would cover for him, but he must not provoke Granny Kikuko, otherwise he would suffer a lot. Ghost Pokémon are famous for their elusiveness, and it would be too easy for Granny Kikuko to mess with him. Chen Shi was silent for 2 seconds, and he made up his mind that he must not expose the fact that he was a student of Professor Oak. Sharona felt that something was wrong with the boy beside her, and asked softly, "What's wrong with you? Is everything okay?" Daigo and Farong also turned their heads to look over. Chen Shi shook his head. "I'm fine, I just thought of something, you don't have to worry." Seeing that he didn't seem to be lying, the 3 of them were relieved. Soon, the 4 of them turned their attention back to the monitor. Because the content on it had been forcibly replaced, a host who stepped on a shield sword monster appeared on the screen. "Hello everyone, I am the host of this World Championship. After 2 days of preliminaries, 128 geniuses finally stood out from more than 4,000 people and successfully entered the main competition." As the host's words fell, cheers rang out from the audience. "Next, we invited a heavyweight, that is, Kanto region's Ghost King, Kikuko." Quote. Beep. The scene changes, and an old woman with a cane slowly walks out of the metal gate. The moment she appears, the cheers in the field reach their peak. The whole venue suddenly boils up. Daigo can't help but sigh. This is the earliest 4 heavenly kings in Kanto, Grandma Kikuko. I heard that she has been one of the 4 heavenly kings for decades. I don't know how strong she is. Chen Shi leaned on the sofa and said lightly, "She has been one of the 4 heavenly kings for as long as our old man Genji in the Hoenn region." And these people are getting more and more powerful as they get older. Their strength is basically I can't guess it at all. Daigo was stunned, and recalled the heroic captain in his mind. He looked at the figure on the screen with a cane and nodded in agreement. He felt that what Lao Chen said was right. These people are really getting more and more evil as they get older. Ghost-type king, Farong looked at Grandma Kikuko, with countless little stars in her eyes. Chen Shi smiled and said, Farong, you have to work hard. Senior Mura in our Hoenn region is about to retire. If you work hard, you will definitely become the ghost-type king. When the time comes, I will rely on you to protect me. Farong rolled her eyes. Why don't you become the ghost-type king? Your initial Pokémon is still the ghost-type Dragonite. I think it's okay for you to become the ghost-type king. You can protect me when the time comes. Hearing this, Chen Shi's mouth suddenly became uncontrollable, and he said, I'm not a dodo, I still have face. Quote. The three looked at him in confusion. What dodo, what shame. Chen Shi coughed awkwardly twice. It's okay, I was just joking, you don't have to care about it. Sharona on the side narrowed her eyes. Her intuition told her that the sentence just now was not that simple, and there must be something interesting hidden. But she didn't understand what it meant. After thinking for a while, she couldn't think of anything, so she had to give up. On the screen, the host held the microphone and said excitedly, we are about to start the first round of the main competition, which will also determine the top 64 players of our World Championship. Then, let's not talk nonsense, the game officially begins, please ask the players to go on stage according to the arrangement. In the lounge, Sharona stood up, my game time is 8:30, I have to go now. Come on, Sister Sharona. Farong clenched her fist and waved it vigorously. Dao also smiled and blessed. Chen Shi didn't say much, just waved his hand, go and come back quickly. Quote. I will watch your game. Hyerna raised her eyebrows, looked at him meaningfully, and then walked out of the lounge. The next player to appear is Sharona from the Sinnoh region. As far as I know, Sharona is the champion of the last Sinnoh Lily of the Valley tournament and is known as the Goddess of Battle. Her opponent is not simple either. She is the runner-up of the last Hibiki tournament in the Unova region, Yuta. So, what kind of exciting game can the two players bring us? Let's wait and see. As the host finished speaking, Sharona and Yuta were already in place. In the lounge, Chen Shi was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Yuta was the runner-up of the Hibiki tournament. It was pretty good. No wonder he could enter the main competition. However, he was not qualified to deal with Sharona. Chen Shi looked at the screen, and the referee signaled both players to summon Pokémon. Sharona put one hand on her waist and was the first to summon her Pokémon. Luca. As soon as Lucario appeared, he released his momentum without concealment, waiting for his opponent to appear with a calm look. Oh my god, it's a Quasi-King Lucario. This is also the first Quasi-King Pokémon to appear in this competition, which is incredible. The host shouted excitedly, and there was a burst of exclamations from the audience. And Yuta, who was opposite Sharona, immediately looked ugly. It's a Quasi-King. It's really unlucky to meet such a perverted player just after entering the main competition. Please ask Yuta to summon Pokémon. The referee's cold voice sounded in the field, and Courage gritted his teeth and took out a Pokeball and threw it. Go, Monarch Snake. A Monarch Snake more than 3 meters long suddenly appeared in the field. In the lounge, Daigo said with some surprise, this is actually a top-level Monarch Snake in the gym. It seems that this Yuta is still quite capable. Chen Shi touched his chin. Through the screen, he could not use the system to scan the Monarch Snake's data, and did not know the characteristics of this Monarch Snake. If it is a snake that sings the opposite tune, then there may be a chance. If it is a snake with lush characteristics, then it will have no chance in front of Lucario. On the battlefield, the referee looked at the two with an expressionless face, then I announce it. The game begins. Yuta's eyes condensed. Monarch Snake, grow. Sharona on the opposite side also issued her own command at the same time, Lucario, piercing sound. Yuta was stunned, and his face became more and more ugly. Is he predicted? On the battlefield, Monarch Snake had just used growth to strengthen herself, but was interrupted by a strong piercing sound, which gave her a headache. Hiss. Before Yuta could react, Sharona's next order had already fallen. Lucario, Wave Missile. Lucario gathered his hands together, and a blue wave missile condensed in an instant, heading straight for Monarch Snake. Yuta was shocked and shouted anxiously, "Monarch Snake, use guard." Sirona's mouth corners slightly raised. "Lucario, approach quickly, use power." Lucario and Sirona have a high degree of tacit understanding, and they took action immediately after receiving the order. Monarch Snake just blocked the wave missile, but the next moment, Lucario rushed in front of her and knocked Monarch Snake away in an instant. "Lucario, don't give her a chance, use the power." Yuta's face changed drastically, and he shouted, "Monarch Snake, get out of the way." In the lounge, Chen Shi shook his head. "Sharona won." Daigo also nodded slightly, agreeing very much. "Although we haven't seen the end yet, anyone with a discerning eye can see that Monarch Snake will definitely not be able to dodge the next power attack, nor can it block this attack. The defeat is doomed." Daigo sighed a little. That Yuta was predicted by Sharona at the beginning, otherwise he could still struggle. Chen Shi smiled. "This is meaningless. There is a gap between the level of Monarch Snake and Lucario, and the attributes are still disadvantageous. If you want to win, you must use the transformation skill to strengthen, but how can Sharona give him this opportunity?" The fact is the same as they guessed. The Monarch Snake in the field has been lying on the ground and lost its ability to fight. The referee also announced the winner of this game. Sirona put away the unharmed Lucario and left directly from the passage behind. Yuta took back the Monarch Snake and held the Pokeball tightly, his eyes full of resentment. Before coming here, his goal was to enter the top 16. But he never expected that he would encounter such a strong opponent in the first game of the main competition. Yuta sighed and withdrew from the game dejectedly. "Field. Congratulations, you played beautifully." In the lounge, as soon as Sharona came back, she received Chen Shi's congratulations. Sharona just smiled faintly and didn't say much. Now there are only two of them in this lounge. Farong and Daigo have just gone to participate in the competition. Chen Shi's game has not started yet, so the two sat down to watch the game between Daigo and Farong. Daigo has nothing to say, and the early stage of the Quasi-King Boss Gorilla came out and easily defeated the opponent. It was more or less a bit cruel. But Farong encountered a little trouble. Nanami Oji's strength is unexpectedly good, and she has a gym-level Pico C. But because she is not particularly good at fighting, Farong's Gengar won the game. Chen Shi sighed secretly. After all, she is his niece, and he still feels a little sorry for Nanami Oji's elimination. During this period, Chen Shi had seen the matches of Caluni and Dante, but they didn't give their best. All the Pokémon sent out were the top Pokémon in the gym. Chen Shi was a little helpless. These people didn't reveal any information at all. It's the main competition, but they are still hiding it. Can't they just bring out the Pokémon that are about to be the best like Daigo and Sharona? Isn't it better for everyone to play open cards together? A bunch of old idiots. Just then, the door of the lounge was opened. Farong ran in, followed by Daigo. "Sister Sharona, I won too." Farong raised her little head proudly, looking for praise. Chen Shi glanced at her and said unhappily, "It's just a win, look at how capable you are. If you don't know, you would have thought you won the championship." Farong puffed up her cheeks and glared at him angrily. "I won, so why don't you let me be happy? Besides, I'm talking to Sister Sirona, not you." "HMPH, I won't talk to you." Farong turned her head away and sat on the sofa angrily. The good mood she had just won the game disappeared immediately. "Okay, stop making trouble." Sirona sighed helplessly. Chen Shi shrugged, glanced at the time, and then stood up. Now it was his turn to play. Dear audience, let's focus on venue number 9 next. Because the youngest intermediate breeder in the league, Chen Shi from the Hoenn region, is about to appear. And his opponent is also quite strong, Kenji from the Kanto region, who was one of the top 4 players in the last Silver Conference. I wonder what kind of sparks will be created between them. Let's wait and see. The gates on both sides of the battlefield opened, and Chen Shi and Kenji walked out slowly and stood on both sides of the venue. Kenji stared angrily at the black-haired boy opposite him. He knew this person. He was also one of the 6 people who humiliated him at the registration office that day. Kenji will never forget that day. These 6 people ignored him directly. That indifferent look made him become a clown. In the end, he fled in panic and lost face in front of so many people. Thinking of this, Jianqi mocked directly, "What the hell is the youngest intermediate breeder? They are just a group of dogs that serve as trainers. How dare they come to participate in the World Championships? Let me make you face the reality." Hearing this, Chen Shi was stunned. Then he was not angry, but looked at Jianqi opposite with a strange expression. Originally, he just thought that this person was arrogant and a little arrogant, and didn't take it too seriously. The world is originally a place where the strong are respected, and he does have the capital to be arrogant. There is nothing to say about this. But you said this, it really made Chen Shi unable to do it. This is the World Championships site. The entire game process is broadcast live all over the world, and the sound is also broadcast out. You dare to say anything? In the lounge, Daigo's eyes twitched slightly. This man is dead, no one can save him. Farong tilted her head and asked in confusion, "Why, Brother Daigo, isn't he just a little arrogant? He's not dead, is he?" Sharona snorted coldly and explained, "Because he said something he shouldn't have said. Not only did he insult the entire breeder profession, but he also made the Kanto region lose face in front of the whole world. So many people won't let him go." "Oh," Farong nodded thoughtfully. Sure enough, after Kenji finished speaking, the entire venue fell into great turmoil, and countless breeders on the scene cursed. Miss Junsha tried hard to maintain order and tried her best to appease the angry crowd. The same was true for those watching the game outside, and their favorability towards Kenji dropped to the freezing point. In the lounge on the top floor of the silver venue, Grandma Kikuko narrowed her eyes slightly and revealed a sinister smile. Kenji is a player from the Kanto region, and he actually said such a thing in the World Championship. What would others think? Does this represent the attitude of your Kanto League towards breeders? This is a slap in the face of the entire breeder group. In the field, the referee glanced at Kenji coldly and said lightly, "Please release your Pokémon." Kenji did not realize the seriousness of the problem at all, grinned, "Let you feel the despair. Go Nidoking." Nido. A Nidoking with a height of 1.8 meters suddenly appeared in the field. Most of his body is purple, his abdomen is white, he has a big horn on his head, and there are thick spikes on his back. Chen Shi's mind moved, and he scanned the data of Nidoking. Pokémon. Nidoking Life Orb. Level 59 Gym Peak. Qualification King. Features Forced. Gender Male. Skills Random Attack, Poison Spike, Double Kick, Horn Slam, Poison, Super Horn Drill, Earth Power, Poison Needle, Inspiration Fist, 100,000 volts, Earthquake, Thunder, Ice Beam, Electric Shock Wave, Jet Flame, Sludge Bomb, Ultimate Impact, Stone Attack, Rock Blockade. When Chen Shi saw the data of Nidoking, he was really surprised. It turned out to be a forced Nidoking with a life orb. This is a big shot. This Jianqi's strength is higher than that of Sharona's previous opponent, Yuta. Chen Shi gave up letting Charizard and Metagross appear, and instead planned to fight quickly and teach Jianqi a lesson. Who dared to say anything? Go, Swampert. Chen Shi took out a Pokeball and threw it. Soon, Swampert appeared in the field excitedly, and it was finally his turn to play. Kenji looked at Swampert with contempt. In his eyes, this game was already a foregone conclusion. Recently, he got a life gem, which greatly enhanced Nidoking's combat ability. This Swampert took what to block. Because Swampert didn't release his aura, Jianqi didn't know how to identify the strength of Pokémon, so he didn't take Swampert seriously at all. Jianqi felt that it was good enough for a Pokémon of a breeder to have gym-level strength. The referee saw that they were ready and no longer hesitated, "Then I declare." The game begins. Jianqi smiled contemptuously. Nidoking, use Freezing Beam. Nido. Nidoking condensed a large amount of ice energy all over his body and was about to use Freezing Beam. Climb the waterfall. Chen Shi issued a faint command. LTSZ. Swampert's eyes condensed, and with a bang, a big pit was left on the spot where Swampert was, and he came to Nidoking in an instant. The water energy hit Nidoking heavily, interrupting his Freezing Beam. Jianqi's pupils suddenly contracted. This is impossible. In the lounge, Daigo and Sharona's eyes also became serious. What a fast speed. What a strong explosive power. Many other players also noticed this scene, and their eyes showed fear. The speed of Swampert's explosion just now was too amazing. It was so far away, but it came to Nidoking in an instant. This is simply incredible. Even the speed of God is not so fast. They immediately became extremely vigilant against Chen Shi. Swampert's attack has not stopped. After the waterfall hit, the next attack of Water Flow Break was launched and hit Nidoking heavily. Boom! A huge roar sounded on the battlefield. The battle in reality is not like the animation, where the opponent will retreat and wait for you after releasing a skill. In reality, as long as you make a mistake, you are likely to face a series of blows. You will not be given time to react at all. The final result can only be a loss. Just like now, Nidoking, who is at the top of the gym, can't withstand the two water-type moves of the quasi-king level Swampert and directly loses his combat ability. Raw TS. In the field, Swampert screamed excitedly and ran back to his trainer. On the other side, Kenji's eyes widened, and he couldn't believe what he saw. He actually lost. And he lost cleanly. He was defeated by a breeder he looked down on in 2 moves. Kenji couldn't accept this result at all. He clenched his fists, his face suddenly twisted, and he shouted hoarsely, "Impossible, I can't lose. You must have cheated, I don't accept it. Referee, he cheated, can't you see it?" Kenji's face was distorted, and he yelled at the referee. The referee snorted coldly and made a gesture. 2 staff members immediately rushed out from the back and dragged Janshi back. Chen Shi took back the giant Swampert, then looked at Janshi with pity and walked towards the passage behind. He had no interest in explaining anything to a dying idiot. "Daigo, I got scolded for you this time." As soon as he returned to the lounge, Chen Shi said with a smile. Daigo shook his head helplessly, and naturally understood what his friend was talking about. It was him who had the conflict with Kenji first. "I didn't expect that Lao Chen would actually meet Kenji in the World Championship." Then Daigo smiled. "Anyway, there will be someone to vent your anger, right? I guess I won't see Kenji again tomorrow." Chen Shi leaned on the sofa, thinking back to what Kenji said, and couldn't help but feel funny. How stupid must he be to say such a thing? In the end, after losing the game, he shouted that his opponent cheated. It almost made Chen Shi laugh. This is the World Championship that has attracted the attention of the entire league. The Ghost King Kikuko even sat in the arena in person. How could anyone cheat? Kenji's words almost slapped the organizer, the Kanto region, in the face. It is hilarious that our own players lost the game in our own territory and accused other players of cheating. At this time, Farong came over and asked curiously, "Brother Chen Shi, why is your Swampert climbing the waterfall so fast? How did he rush to the front of Nidoking in an instant?" Daigo and Sharona also pricked up their ears. Obviously, they were also curious. Chen Shi smiled mysteriously. "Want to know? Let's think about it." Farong nodded her head frantically. "I won't tell you even if you want to know." Farong's expression fell and she glared at him angrily. Daigo and Sharona felt a little regretful, but they didn't ask more. It's obvious that this should be some special technique, just like the death makeup of King Kikuko. How could he tell them easily? Chen Shi smiled and didn't say anything. This was taught by Professor Oak's Dragonite, and Chen Shi also added some inch force techniques. After the dreamy improvement, Swampert's waterfall climbing became like this. It can burst out extremely fast in an instant, making it difficult for the opponent to react. However, this waterfall climbing move is not just that simple, and the second half has not been used yet. This is one of his next trump cards, and he can't tell you now. By the way, has the information about your next game come out? Not yet. Daigo shook his head. It's different from the previous qualifiers. We have to wait until the end of the main competition today before we can draw our opponents. And after entering the top 64, it's not 1 vs 1, but 2 vs 2. The notification you sent during the game. As he said, Daigo took out the remote control and pressed a few times, and a notification appeared on the big screen. Chen Shi took a quick look and it was almost the same as what Daigo said, basically just some minor changes, but it was also much more rigorous. As for 2 vs 2, Chen Shi had been mentally prepared. If the game goes on, there is a high possibility of a 6 vs 6 full team battle, so there is nothing strange about this. After a careful look, Chen Shi touched his chin and said, "Then we have to wait until the first round of the competition is over, which is almost 12 o'clock. The second round will definitely start in the afternoon." Should we watch the game here or go out for dinner or something? Hearing this question, the three of them were silent. Just as they were hesitating whether to leave, the door of the lounge was knocked. Chen Shi was stunned, then walked over quickly and opened the door. As soon as the door opened, a man and a woman stood outside the door. One was Yu Longdu and the other was Kona. Chen Shi, long time no see. Yu Longdu laughed heartily. Kona still looked as cold as ice, but also nodded slightly at him. Chen Shi looked at the two of them, his face a little strange. Both of them had red hair, and now standing together, they actually looked more or less like a couple. It's really weird. In Chen Shi's memory, these two people are a pair of happy enemies. Du wanted to be the champion of the Guandu League, but he just couldn't get past Kona. Kona was also stubborn and unwilling to give up, which led to Du's failure. In the end, there was no other way, so Du had to run to the Chengdu League, which was separated, to be the champion. Now Chen Shi actually saw a hint of husband and wife in these two people. What else could this be? Chen Shi, what's wrong with you? Du asked in confusion, and waved his hand in front of him. Chen Shi reacted and quickly invited the two in. Sorry, I was thinking about something just now, don't mind. Come in. But Du shook his head. Chen Shi, we won't go in. This time I came here to ask you if you want to go out for dinner together. It's just that the games are over now, and it's time for the second round to start. Chen Shi looked back at the three people, and seeing that they all nodded, he agreed. No problem, let's go. With that, Chen Shi and the other four and Yu Longdu and the other two were ready to go out. But as soon as they walked out of the lounge, they were stopped by a surprised voice. Brother Chen. Quote, Chen Shi was stunned for a moment, and when he looked back, he saw a sweet-looking, fair-skinned girl in a white dress, with a look of surprise on her face, trotting over and hugging his arm. Sirona next to him narrowed her eyes immediately, looked at Chen Shi, and then looked at the girl, with a dangerous light flashing in her eyes. Dao and Farong looked at each other, their faces full of excitement. They all realized one thing. There's something. Although Yu Longdu and Kona didn't understand what was going on, they saw that the girl should know Chen Shi, so they didn't disturb her. Brother Chen, I didn't expect to see you here. The girl seemed a little uncomfortable, but still said in a low voice. Her voice was soft and very pleasant. Chen Shi glanced at Sirona awkwardly, and pulled his hand out calmly. It turned out to be Yuzi. It's been a long time since we last met, and I didn't expect to meet you here. I heard that you went to travel to the Kalos area. How are you doing? Have you been doing well during this period? Quote. I'm fine, thank you, Brother Chen. Yuko felt a little embarrassed seeing so many people around her, so she whispered and lowered her head. Chen Shi felt that the atmosphere around him was getting more and more wrong, so he hurried to introduce them. This is Yuko, my neighbor, who traveled to the Kalos region more than a year ago. Daigo, I told you before. Hearing this, Daigo was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered that Lao Chen did talk about Yuko when he was at Meteor Falls. She was the girl whose parents sacrificed for the Alliance, and the Alliance was deducted compensation in the end. At this moment, a sound of footsteps sounded in the empty corridor. Everyone turned their heads and saw a tall, fair-skinned, short-haired beauty coming over. She had a pair of big eyes, and her whole body was dressed in white. There were stripes on both cuffs and waist, and the end of the hem of the gorgeous jacket extended almost parallel. So, you are the Brother Chen that Yuzi has been thinking about. I didn't expect that you are the youngest intermediate breeder in the Alliance. I am really disrespectful. Hello, let's meet, my name is Kalyuni. As soon as these words came out, Yuzi lowered her head even more, and her whole face was red. I refuted in my heart, I didn't think about it. Chen Shi's mouth twitched. Why does Yuzi seem to know this person, and the relationship seems to be pretty good? This is the future champion goddess of the Kalos region. I don't know how they are related. Then, he glanced at Sirona again, and seeing that the latter had no reaction, he said, just call me Chen Shi. Nice to meet you, Miss Kalyuni. We are going to have dinner. Do you want to come with us? Sure, my game is over. If you don't mind, I'm very honored to have dinner with you. Kalyuni smiled and nodded in agreement. Yu Longdu immediately decided, it's great that Miss Kalyuni can come. Let's go now. Everyone was very welcome to Kalyuni's coming, so there was no objection. In the largest hotel box in Bayan town, 8 people sat down and chatted after ordering the dishes. Chen Shi asked first, "Did Miss Kalyuni come with Yuko?" "Yes, I came with Yuko." "That's really a bother for you. Yuko is a little introverted, please bear with me." Kalyuni looked a little strange when she heard this. She glanced at Yuko, who was keeping her head down and didn't say a word. She thought of the crazy scene when she fought with her and twitched her mouth. "You call this introversion? If she is introverted, then what am I?" Chen Shi noticed Kalyuni's strange look and was confused. In his memory, Yuko was a person with severe social phobia. She usually had to hesitate for a long time to say hello to people. It was only in front of familiar people that she was a little better. Saying that she is introverted should be a compliment to her, right? "Why do you have a weird expression?" Kalyuni smiled. "No, I get along well with Yuzi, she is one of my few friends. We met at the finals of the Mier conference. If she hadn't made a mistake in command at the last moment, I would have been the loser." When these words came out, Chen Shi was shocked and looked at Yuzi in surprise. If Kalyuni didn't lie, wouldn't Yuzi be very strong? "My grandfather and I just couldn't stand the style of the alliance, but we didn't expect to create a genius." When Yuzi heard their conversation, her eyes suddenly turned red, and tears fell like a broken thread. Kalyuni was stunned, then quickly took out a tissue to wipe Yuzi's tears and patted Yuzi's back gently. She didn't ask her friend why she was crying, but just comforted her silently. Other people didn't understand, but they didn't disturb her. The atmosphere in the box suddenly became quiet, leaving only Yuzi's sobbing and the sound of Kalyuni patting her back. After a long while, Yuzi wiped her tears and whispered, "It's all thanks to Brother Chen and Grandpa Chen that I can have what I have today." Dao sighed and felt a little sympathetic to the girl. She was unfortunate. Her parents died and the compensation was deducted by the alliance. But she was also lucky. In the darkest time, the Chen family reached out to her and got justice for her. However, Yuzi's words caught Farong's attention and she asked curiously, "Why do you say that you can have what you have today with Brother Chen Shi and Grandpa Chen? What does this have to do with them?" As Farong finished speaking, everyone's eyes were focused on her. Chen Shi put on a painful mask directly. "Big sister, can you ask this casually? Even a fool knows that this is someone's sad story. If someone wants to say it, you just listen, but the problem is that someone didn't say it. Why are you asking so quickly? Why don't you have any sense?" Farong seemed to realize that she shouldn't ask, so she just shrank her neck and acted like an ostrich. After that, Yuko seemed to let it go and whispered about her experience. Everyone sympathized with this. The introverted girl spoke out to comfort her. Kalyuni then realized that her friend had such a past. He couldn't help but hold her hand tightly, hoping to give her a little comfort. Someone dared to take the compensation given to the children of the investigators who sacrificed themselves. They are simply not human. Du blushed and cursed in a low voice. He was also an investigator of the Alliance and knew how dangerous this profession was. It can be said that every time he went on a mission, he was jumping back and forth between life and death. If he was not careful, there might be no tomorrow. But people worked so hard for the Alliance, and the compensation given to their children after their sacrifice was actually taken away by others. How could he accept this? Sorona's eyes softened when she looked at Yuko, and she was no longer hostile as before. Chen Shi waved his hand and comforted him. "Your achievements today are all due to your own efforts. It has nothing to do with us. Grandpa and I are just helping you get back what you deserve. In my heart, you and Farong are both my sisters. It is my duty to help you. Don't take it too seriously." After saying that, Chen Shi couldn't help but secretly glance at Sorona. Seeing that her expression was finally not as cold as before, he felt relieved. "Thank you, Brother Chen." Yuzi sobbed and whispered. "No need to thank me. If you really want to thank me, you can treat me to this meal." Yuzi was stunned, then nodded heavily. The atmosphere in the box instantly became relaxed. Kalyuni also teased, "This is the largest hotel in Bayan town. The food is not cheap. It seems that you are going to bleed a lot." "It doesn't matter. I have money." Yuzi had a solemn expression on her face, and then said in a soft and sticky voice. Yuzi had made up her mind in her heart that she would treat the meal no matter how expensive it was. "It can be regarded as a way to express my gratitude." However, her solemn expression and her soft voice made everyone laugh. Even Kona couldn't help but smile. What a lovely girl. In fact, for people of their strength, making money is really not difficult, whether it is black or white. If you just want to make money, it is really easy. How expensive can this meal be? Kalyuni was mostly just teasing. The meal ended with laughter and joy, and everyone soon returned to the silver venue. When checking the schedule for the second round of the main competition, Chen-shi was really surprised. Because Shirona's opponent is Denji, the future strongest gym leader of Sinnoh. Daigo's opponent is an old acquaintance, Mikuli's inferior girlfriend Naki. Farong's opponent is Sinnoh's future super-powered King Wusong. As for Chen-shi's opponent, it was even more up. It was Yuko, and the match between them was the first to start. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, venue number 1. This is really weird. We had lunch together at noon and were happy. I didn't expect that we would face each other in the afternoon. Ah, listening to his friend's sigh, Daigo smacked his lips, his tone a little sighing. This is really the impermanence of life. Chen-shi was silent for a while, and suddenly he was relieved. Now it is the top 64 of the main competition. Almost all those who can stay are future big players. It is not surprising to meet anyone. You can only blame Yuko for her bad luck. Old Chen, it's almost time, you should go. Chen-shi nodded slightly, slowly walked out of the lounge, and followed the instructions to the number 1 venue. After entering the passage, he stood in front of the metal door. After waiting for a while, the time reached 1 p.m., and the metal door slowly opened. Chen-shi walked in without hesitation. The next player to appear is Chen-shi. In the last game, his giant Swampert left a deep impression on us. I wonder what surprises he can bring us in this game. Let's wait and see. As he walked into the battlefield, the host's high voice sounded, and many fans in the audience stand cheered for him. On the other side, Yuko stood quietly in front of the battlefield. Seeing him coming out, Yuzi's voice was no longer as soft as before, and she said very seriously, "Brother Chen, I want to see your true strength." Chen-shi was stunned, then nodded gently, "Then as you wish." At the Chen family farm, Grandpa Chen looked at the girl on TV and felt a little emotional. I didn't expect that Yuzi was so competitive that she could make it to the top 64 and even compete with Xiaoxi. It's worth it that I went to the league for her. Grandma Chen said with a smile. Yes, this child is really competitive. She has grown to this point in 1 year. She must have suffered a lot. Grandpa Chen was silent after hearing this, and looked at the figure of the girl on TV, which gradually overlapped with the stubborn girl who was holding back tears a year ago. In the number 1 venue, the referee looked at the two people. This game adopts 2 vs 2, and can only be rotated once, do you understand? Neither of them spoke, but nodded slightly. Okay, then please summon your Pokémon. Chen-shi smiled lightly, took out a luxury ball and threw it hard. Come on stage, Dragon Baruto. Baruya. Dragon Baruto's narrow eyes were filled with excitement, and he stared at Yuzi coldly without hiding his momentum. Oh my god, it's the quasi-god Pokémon of the Galar region, Dragon Baruto. This is a different colored Dragon Baruto, and its strength has reached the quasi-king level. The host stepped on the shield blade monster and excitedly told everyone what Pokémon this was. In the audience, many people who didn't know this Pokémon suddenly realized it. Oh my god, a shining quasi-god, I dare not even dream of it. Ah, look, it's our Galar region's Dolanbaruto, a dragon and ghost quasi-god. What, this is a dragon and ghost quasi-god. And it's a different color. In the audience, exclamations continued to sound, and some people were already shouting Chen-shi's name. In the field, Yuko took a deep breath and released her partner. Oh my god, a flame chicken with a height of 2 meters appeared in the field. The flame chicken has white feathers and a V-shaped comb, its eyes are blue, and it has bandaged claws and strong legs. It looks a bit humanoid, with both hands and feet. Chen-shi's mind moved and scanned the data of the flame chicken. Pokémon. Blaziken. Level. 61. Early Champion. Qualification. Quasi-Champion. Attribute. Speed up. Gender. Female. Skills. Lightning Flash, Spark, Swallow Return, Double Kick, Split, Energy Concentration, Flare Charge, Brave Bird Attack, Flame Punch, Jet Flame, Shadow Grab, Hold, Fitness, High-Speed Movement, Kick Down, Rockstone Lock, charged flame attack, tile splitting, lightning fist, big word explosion. After a few quick glances, he sighed. That little chicken back then has become so strong now. However, it is not a wise choice to use Blaziken to deal with Dragonite. Yuko's expression remained unchanged. She certainly knew that it was not a wise choice to use Blaziken to deal with Dragonite. But Yuko had no choice, because she didn't think that a gym-level Pokémon could beat Dragonite, and she only had Blaziken, a quasi-king-level Pokémon. This was the only way out. Chen Shi also guessed this and smiled softly. Let me see how you've grown in this year. You'll see. Yuko seemed to have unlocked her nature, with madness in her eyes, and shouted loudly. Chen Shi was frightened by the shout and turned to look at Yuko in disbelief. No, sister, are you wrong? Have you awakened some strange attributes? Shouldn't you be a cute girl next door? How come you look like a lunatic? The referee said, I declare the game open. Blazer, use Shadow Clone, and run. Yuko shouted wildly with a crazy look on her face. Oh my god. Blazer immediately started running, and figures exactly like her appeared around her. Chen Shi swallowed his saliva. Meteor shower. Baruya. Dronbaruto opened his mouth, and a meteorite wrapped in dragon energy was launched into the sky, then scattered and hit Blazer directly. In the battlefield, bursts of explosions sounded, and thick smoke filled half of the venue. But Blazer was nowhere to be seen. Chen Shi's eyes fixed. Shadow attack. Baruya. Dronbaruto flicked his tail and immediately disappeared from the battlefield. Blazer, use bodybuilding now. Yuko roared. The flame chicken that just jumped out of the smoke immediately stopped its action and raised its hand to release the bodybuilding. But the next moment, the figure of Doranbaruto appeared behind the flame chicken, and along with Doranbaruto, there was also a strong sense of weightlessness and severe pain. Oh, scary. How could it be so fast? Yuko couldn't believe her eyes. That was clearly a sneak attack just now. Doesn't this skill need to be charged in a different space? Why is it so fast? It took less than 2 seconds for Doranbaruto to disappear, but he could complete the charge and attack the flame chicken. Oh my god, Chen Shi's Dragon Ball, his sneak attack speed is too fast. Yuko's Blaziken was knocked out before she could react. And we can see from the painful look on Blaziken's face that this move is very harmful and caused great damage to Blaziken. The host explained hard, stirring up the atmosphere again, and exclamations rang out from the audience. In the lounge, the eyes of the major players became more and more solemn. This Dragon Ball, so strong. Kalani clenched her hands tightly and silently cheered for her friend in her heart. Dao shook his head and sighed. Old Chen has shown his true strength, which may be the greatest respect for Yuko. Sharona nodded slightly, her beautiful eyes staring at the field. Chen Shi chuckled. Yuzi, it's not a good habit to be absent-minded during a battle. Dragon Baruto, Dragon Arrow. Baruya. Dragon Baruto narrowed his narrow eyes and raised his head to wrap the two dragons with dragon energy. The next moment, the dragon arrow was fired and went straight to the flame chicken that had just flown backwards. Flame chicken, hold on. Yuzi came back to her senses and shouted hurriedly. Flame chicken had just been blown away by the shadow sneak attack, and its body slid on the ground. After hearing what Yuzi said, Flame Chicken forced itself to stabilize its body and condensed a green light curtain in front of it. It was a god-level skill. Hold on. Unfortunately, Chen Shi's mouth corners slightly raised. You reacted quickly, Yuzi. Unfortunately, holding on is useless against Dragon Baruto. What? Yuzi was shocked. Before she could respond, the dragon arrow of Doranbaruto had already passed through the light curtain and hit Flame Chicken heavily. Oh, scare. After suffering this blow, Flame Chicken felt pain all over her body, her head was dazed, and double images appeared in front of her eyes. Dear audience, I just learned that Doranbaruto has a feature called penetration, which can ignore skills such as guarding or light wall. It seems that contestant Yuzi doesn't know much about this and gave the wrong instructions. The host stepped on the shield blade monster and took the microphone to explain the situation to everyone. On the battlefield, Yuzi looked at Flame Chicken nervously, her eyes full of self-blame. Chen Shi sighed. Give her the last shadow ball. Baruya. Doranbaruto looked at the Flame Chicken who was holding the ground with her hands and trying to stand up by force, and there was some admiration in his eyes. However, Doran's actions did not stop. The greatest respect for the opponent was to defeat her fair and square. The next second, the shadow ball flew out and hit the flame chicken fiercely, and a violent roar sounded in the battlefield. This time, she couldn't stand up and fell to the ground unconscious. The referee immediately said, "The flame chicken has lost its ability to fight. Please send the next Pokémon." Yuzi took out the Pokeball and took back the seriously injured flame chicken. "Sorry, flame chicken, it was my mistake that made you lose the game." After that, Yuzi sighed and was about to reach out and prepare to admit defeat. She could no longer see the hope of winning. Brother Chen's Dragon Ball was too strong, and she was no match for it. Just then, Chen Shi's voice came from the opposite side. "Yuzi, don't give up." Yuzi looked at the boy with a gentle smile on the opposite side. Her expression was a little dazed, and she remembered the day more than a year ago. When she was most desperate, this boy also stood in front of her like this, with a gentle smile on his face, and said to her, "Yuko, don't give up." The boy's voice was like a beam of light, illuminating her dark world and bringing her light. The huge venue was too quiet at the moment. No one disturbed Yuko, waiting for her decision. Even the referee didn't urge her. In the lounge, Sirona slowly said, "Facing such a strong opponent, do you still have the courage to continue fighting?" Daigo and Farong didn't answer. Their eyes were fixed on Yuko, who looked dazed in the picture. Kalani was a little worried and felt sorry for her friend. With Yuko's strength, she should have been able to enter the top 32, but she didn't expect to meet Chen Shi in the top 64. Whether she admitted defeat next or not, the result was already doomed. In the field, Yuko came back to her senses, her eyes gradually became firm, and she took out a Pokeball from her waist again. "The opponent is very strong. We are likely to lose. Are you willing to fight?" The Pokeball shook, and suddenly opened, a red light flashed, and a top gym Demon Fire Red Fox stood in the field. "Ha!" The Demon Fire Red Fox leaned over and looked at Yuko. She answered Yuko with her actions, "Fight." "Oh oh oh." Yuko sent out her Pokémon. She made her choice, she will continue to fight. This is the real meaning of Pokémon battles. A thunderous roar suddenly rang out in the venue. "Come on, Yuko. Come on, Foxy. Come on, come on, come on." Tears appeared in Yuko's eyes, and she cheered up again. "Foxy, let's enjoy the battle." "Huh." Foxy nodded and looked seriously at her opponent, the Dragon Ball that easily defeated the Flame Chicken. "Ha ha ha, that's right." Chen Shi laughed. The referee was also very powerful and immediately announced the start of the game. Drinveloto, Shadow Ball, Fox, Jet Flame, then Shadow Clone. Barua, Hu. The two Pokémon that received the command immediately used Shadow Ball and Jet Flame. The two attacks collided in the air. Under the suppression of the level, Shadow Ball quickly penetrated Jet Flame and hit Fox. But it was just a phantom. At the last moment, Fox used Shadow Clone. Fox, Psychic Power, Drinveloto, Shadow Sneak. The Psychic Power wave hit the open space, creating a large hole, but there was no trace of Drinveloto. Yuko gritted her teeth and roared, "Fox, use Shadow Clone quickly." Fox did not hesitate and immediately used Shadow Clone. One after another, the same figures as Fox appeared on the field. Chen Shi smiled and praised, "Good response. But this is not enough." Duolong Baruto, Dragon Wave Sweep. Baruya. Duolong Baruto reappeared in the field, and the Dragon Wave was released brazenly. The strong wave instantly destroyed all the shadow clones of the Demon Fire Red Fox. After doing all this, Duolong Baruto disappeared again, and the next moment he appeared behind the Demon Fire Red Fox. The Demon Fire Red Fox only felt a sharp pain from his back, and in a flash his body flew out uncontrollably. Yuzi lost his voice and said, "This is impossible." "Nothing is impossible. Show your true strength, and decide the outcome with one move." Chen Shi said coldly. Yuzi's eyes condensed, knowing that now is not the time to entangle this, and shouted, "Demon Fire Red Fox, is it still okay?" "Ha!" The Demon Fire Red Fox responded and stood up tremblingly. "Okay, Demon Fire Red Fox, the final blow, we're all on it." Yuko's hidden madness resurfaced, and she shouted at the top of her lungs. "Demon Fire Red Fox, big word explosion." Chen Shi shouted, "Then we can't admit defeat, Dragon Baruto." "Baruya, use all your strength, Dragon Wave." The Demon Fire Red Fox has lost its ability to fight. Chen Shi has won this match. The referee announced the final result expressionlessly. Oh, the Demon Fire Red Fox finally lost to Duolong Baruto and has now lost its ability to fight. Let's cheer for Chen Shi. The host shouted excitedly. Ah, Duolong Baruto, Duolong Baruto, Duolong Baruto is so handsome. As expected of a quasi-god, he directly defeated 2 opponents in a row. That's awesome. Husband, Chen Shi is my husband. Girl, be reserved. On the spectator stand, thunderous applause rang out, giving it to the final winner. In the field, Chen Shi sighed at the lost Yuzi, and walked towards the passage after taking back Duolong Baruto. He had his own goals, and it was impossible for him to stop just because of Yuzi. Being able to send Duolong Baruto was already his greatest respect for Yuzi. I hope she can cheer up as soon as possible. In the lounge, as soon as Chen Shi came back, he found that Farong was missing. After asking, he found out that the match between Farong and Wusong was about to start. Chen Shi immediately became interested. He was still very curious about Wusong's strength. After all, he was the future psychic king of the Sinnoh region. Soon, Farong and Wusong appeared on the battlefield on the screen. Both of them didn't waste any words and sent out their Pokémon directly. Farong summoned the early stage of the Quasi-King Knight Sorcerer. Wusong summoned a Quasi-King level Alakazam. Alakazam has a yellow body, a long beard, and long and pointed ears. The forehead is broad and shiny, and the chest and shoulders are like wrapped in brown armor. There are 2 brown objects like wrist guards on the wrists. The hands have 3 fingers, and both hands hold a spoon. The feet have become thicker, and there are brown parts on the knees that are similar to knee pads. Chen Shi took a look and said calmly, when dealing with Alakazam, the Night Slayer attribute has an advantage. If Farong is smart enough, it is not difficult to win this battle. Indeed, and Alakazam's body is very fragile, and the Night Slayer's chance of winning is still not small. Dao nodded and responded. At the moment when the referee announced the start, the 2 issued instructions at the same time. Xiaoling, freeze the body. Alakazam, reflect the wall. Wusong's face changed drastically. Alakazam, give up the reflective wall and use instant movement. Unfortunately, it was too late. The shadow of the Night Slayer spread rapidly, covering the shadow of Alakazam, fixing it in place. Xiaoling, use Shadow Ball now. Alakazam, use Psychokinesis. The Shadow Ball and Psychokinesis collided, and a strong explosion sounded. In the lounge, Daigo smiled and said, it seems that Farong has grown a lot in the past few months. She is now a very good trainer. Chen Shi leaned on the sofa and did not reply. When the immobilization technique of the Night Slayer hit just now, Alakazam's chance of winning had already dropped to the freezing point. The next situation was not beyond his expectations. When the Shadow Ball and the Psychic Power Strike collided, the Night Slayer quickly approached Alakazam, and the Shadow Fist was ready to go. After being consumed by Alakazam, the Night Slayer won. Wusong sent out Kirinchi, the top of the gym, but he was defeated by Farong in the end and stopped in the top 64. After a while, Farong ran back with a happy face. When she saw Chen Shi, her face froze and she sat down with a cold snort. Daigo stood up at this time. It's my turn to play. I'll go first and come back soon. After that, Daigo straightened his collar and walked out of the lounge directly. Chen Shi's mouth twitched. If he didn't act like a big shot, he would die, right? Who is Brother Daigo's opponent? Farong tilted her head and asked. You've seen Mikali's girlfriend, Naki. Oh, it's her. Farong suddenly realized, and then whispered, didn't you say that girl was very inferior? If she loses to Brother Daigo again now, will she be even more inferior? Chen Shi's mouth twitched and rolled his eyes at her. What do you care about? It's none of your business. Is it not okay for me to ask? Farong muttered in a low voice, feeling a little aggrieved. Sharona glared at the 2 of them. Okay, you 2 stop making trouble and watch the game at ease. The 2 of them calmed down and stared at the screen attentively. In the field, Daigo did not hesitate to release the armored bird at the referee's signal. The armored bird has now reached the early stage of the Quasi-King. Naki on the other side bit her lip and took out a Pokeball opened. It was a Tanabata bluebird at the top of the gym. Tanabata bluebird had a sky blue body, and its fluffy wings seemed to wrap around its body like cotton. Chen Shi sighed slightly. This Tanabata Bluebird should be Naki's strongest Pokémon. The level of the top of the gym was already very impressive among its peers, but it was far behind Daigo. This was another game without suspense. In the field, Daigo showed no mercy and directly ordered Armored Bird to use Frozen Wind. How could Tanabata Bluebird bear this? After a while of entanglement, Tanabata Bluebird finally lost its combat ability. Naki resigned herself to taking back Tanabata Bluebird and took out another Pokeball to open it. As soon as this Pokémon appeared, it caused quite a stir. This Pokémon is very common in the Hoenn region. It is just a king swallow, and its level is only at the top of the gym. But the color of this great swallow is dark green. It is actually a different colored great swallow. Even Daigo couldn't help but take a closer look at this great swallow. Different colored Pokémon are still very rare in the world. Even as the heir of the Zifuchi family, he has not seen many different colored Pokémon. But soon, Daigo gathered his thoughts and commanded the Armored Bird to start with the Frozen Wind, defeating the Great Swallow cleanly. The Great Swallow has lost its ability to fight, and Daigo wins. The referee announced the final result indifferently. Everyone, I'm back. Daigo pushed open the door and walked into the lounge. Farong immediately gave a thumbs up. Brother Daigo is really awesome. You're flattering me, it's nothing. Daigo waved his hands, looking indifferent. It seemed that this battle was just a piece of cake for him. But it was true. With Daigo's strength, as long as he didn't encounter players like Sharona and Watari, he could almost rush into the semifinals. For him, playing against Naki was really nothing. Chen Shi turned to look at the blonde girl beside him. It should be your turn soon, right? I know that Dinsi, he is the runner-up of the Lily of the Valley tournament. I lost to you before, and now I meet you again. Sharona stroked her hair and said calmly, he is just a defeated opponent. This time, I will be the only winner. Next, let's invite Dinsi to the stage. He is the runner-up of the last Lily of the Valley tournament, and he is a trainer who specializes in the electric system. In the previous few games, he won with absolute advantage. The host held the microphone and introduced the handsome blonde boy who had just walked out of the passage to the audience. Dinsi stood in front of the battlefield, took a deep breath, and cheered himself up in his heart. In the audience stand, many fans of Dinsi shouted wildly and cheered for him. Okay, let's welcome the battle goddess of Sinnoh, Sirona. The metal door on the other side opened, and Sirona, wearing a black windbreaker and high heels, walked step by step to the battlefield. In the audience, those who knew the inside story suddenly became excited. These two people are very popular in Sinnoh. One of them is Denji, who even has the title of Binhai Lei. As for Sirona, there is no need to say more. Many Sinnoh audiences are fans of the two. The host smiled and continued. Interestingly, Sharona and Denji had a fierce battle for the championship at the Lily of the Valley Conference. I didn't expect them to meet again at the World Championship. I wonder if Denji can redeem himself and defeat Sharona this time. Don't worry, the game will start soon, let's look forward to it. The referee immediately said, please summon Pokémon from both sides. Denji took out a Pokeball from his waist and said lightly, I lost the last time at the Lily of the Valley Conference. This time, I hope you can also show all your strength and fight me to your heart's content. After speaking, Denji threw the Pokeball and a Rentgen cat appeared on the field. Rentgen cat is a four-legged animal-shaped Pokémon that looks like an adult lion. Its face, hind legs, torso and the back of its front legs are blue, and most of its body is covered with fluffy black fur. The body hair is longer at the base of the shoulders and tail, and forms a mane on its head. The eyes are yellow and the sclera is red. The ears are round and yellow inside. The tail is long and thin with a yellow four-pointed star at the end. This is a Rentgen cat that has reached the early stage of the Quasi-King. Sirona glanced at Dinsi calmly and didn't say much, just took out Lucario's Pokeball and opened it. She didn't bother to say anything at all, because facts speak louder than words. Luca. As soon as Lucario appeared, he saw the Rentgen cat on the opposite side, and a moment of surprise appeared in his eyes. Because this is an old opponent, they have fought before. Seeing this, the referee waved the flag in his hand, then I declare. The game begins. Rentgen cat, use the electric field. Lucario, sword dance. Both sides issued instructions at the same time, and the two Pokémon also acted quickly. A large amount of electric current emerged from the Rentgen cat, gradually covering the entire battlefield with itself as the center, and Lucario was also covered. Lucario didn't care about this at all, and continued to dance with swords, and soon the enhancement was completed. Rentgen cat, 100,000 volts. Lucario, shadow clone. In the lounge, Daigo glanced at his friend. What do you think of their opening? Chen Shi touched his chin and replied, Sharona wants to have a series of 2. What? Daigo was stunned, and then asked quickly, how do you know? And Denji's strength is obviously very strong. Sharona has no level and attribute advantages. It's unlikely to have a series of 2, right? What if Lucario has done 2 swords dances? Daigo frowned. Denji is not stupid, and will never give Lucario the opportunity to do 2 swords dances. Although Lucario has completed a sword dance now, Rentgen cat also has the blessing of the electric field. They are both the same. Why, what about 2 in a row? Chen Shi smiled and said nothing, but his eyes never left the figure with one hand on his waist in the field. After knowing each other for so long, Chen Shi knew Sharona's fighting style very well. For the confident her, she would only choose to use the changing skill of sword dance at the beginning in 2 situations. One is that the opponent is too strong and she has no choice but to strengthen herself to find opportunities. The other is that she doesn't want to give the opponent any chance and wants to penetrate the team. Although Densi is indeed very strong, it has not yet made Sharona have to use sword dance to strengthen and then look for opportunities. So now Sharona's choice can only be the second one. She wants to use Lucario, a Pokémon, to defeat Densi's 2 Pokémon. In the field, strong electric currents destroyed Lucario's shadows one after another. Lucario, speed. Sharona was not in a hurry and issued a faint command. Rentgen cat, use Crazy Volt. Quote, after hearing the opponent's command, Denji gave up his original idea and used Crazy Volt instead. Because now that Lucario is using speed, it is difficult to stop. He wanted to use Crazy Volt to fight Lucario with the blessing of the electric field. In simple terms, it is a blood exchange, but Lucario will definitely suffer greater damage. Meow, the Rentgen cat roared, gathering a large amount of high-voltage current around its body, and rushed towards Lucario with all its strength. But the opposite Sharona was not anxious about it, but the corner of her mouth slightly raised. It is indeed difficult to stop speed all at once, but it does not mean that other moves cannot be used. This may be difficult for others, but for Sharona, this is not difficult. Lucario, hit with the bone stick. Luca, quote, before the 2 Pokémon collided, Lucario condensed a phantom of a bone stick in his hand and smashed it hard on the head of Rentgen cat. Because of this, the current and impact force of Crazy Volt were greatly reduced, but it still pushed Lucario back and caused him considerable damage. Meow. Unfortunately, Rentgen cat was obviously more seriously injured. He was hit by the bone stick blessed by the sword dance and his eyes were full of stars. He let out a painful cry. What? Densi was shocked. When using the speed, he could still use the bone stick to hit randomly. This time Densi lost more than he gained. Who would have thought that Lucario could use the bone stick to attack at such a high speed? Daigo shook his head with some emotion. If you don't know in advance, it's really hard to think of this. It's not surprising that Densi got hit. Chen Shi leaned on the sofa, crossed his legs. Do you believe it? Sharona will not defeat Rentgen cat so easily next time, but will find a way to complete another sword dance. Oh, Daigo raised his eyebrows and continued to look at the battle on the screen. Lucario, use the wave missile. Lucario condensed the wave missile with both hands and threw it hard at Rentgen cat. If this attack hits, Rentgen cat will definitely lose a lot of physical strength, and Lucario's victory is basically certain. Densi obviously understood this and shouted hurriedly. Rentgen cat, wake up, use guard. Meow. Rentgen cat had just been hit on the head, and his mind was still a little confused, but after hearing Denji's voice, he still controlled his energy and wanted to use guard. The next second, the wave missile collided with the green light curtain, and a violent explosion sounded in the field. Rentgen cat released guard in a hurry, resulting in the wave missile not being completely blocked, and was repelled by the impact of the explosion. Denji's face was completely ugly. If Sharona attacked now, Rentgen cat would definitely not be able to stop it. Sharona glanced at Rentgen cat's situation and spoke indifferently. Lucario, take this opportunity to use sword dance. Daigo in the lounge sighed, you were right. Sirona actually gave up such a good opportunity to attack and chose sword dance. It seems that Denji is really going to be killed 2 by 1. Now Lucario's physical strength is not seriously consumed. With the blessing of 2 sword dances, it is absolutely no problem to fight a half-useless Rentgen Cat and the next Pokémon. Unless Denji can take out a Quasi-King mid-stage Pokémon, it will be difficult to stop Lucario. Rentgen Cat. Denji roared. Meow. Rentgen Cat's body rolled in the field for a while, and just when he stood up, Lucario's sword dance had been completed. Now his aura is frighteningly strong, stronger than the average Quasi-King mid-stage Pokémon. Rentgen Cat, don't give up, use that move. Denyi Yut. Denji raised his hands and shouted. Meow. Rentgen Cat forced himself to cheer up, and amazing lightning burst out from his body, and the surrounding area was gradually destroyed by this current. The next moment, Rentgen Cat turned into a flash of lightning and rushed towards Lucario at lightning speed. Oh my god, what did I see? Seeing this scene, the host shouted excitedly. It's a combination skill. It's a combination skill of lightning flash and crazy volt. Player Den C actually has such a trump card. Let's see how Lucario should deal with this move. In the audience, Den C's fans also got excited and cheered for Den C loudly. When Sharona saw this move, her expression became serious. Because this move is too powerful and too fast, it is indeed not easy to solve. But it is not impossible, and the solution is very simple. Lucario, dig a hole. Lucario. Hearing this, Lucario's eyes lit up, and he quickly condensed ground energy, then dug a hole and drilled in. Drilled in. The combo that Denji regarded as his trump card hit nothing. The atmosphere in the field suddenly became quiet. Denji's fans, whose originally excited expressions suddenly froze. They could never imagine that such a powerful move could be easily cracked. It was just a simple digging of a hole. Denji's mentality almost collapsed, and he looked at the bewildered Rentgen Cat in the field absent-mindedly. In the lounge, Farong burst out laughing. The momentum of that combo just now was so huge, I thought it was so awesome, but I didn't expect it to be just this. Chen Shi couldn't help laughing, and he suddenly realized that Sharona sometimes had a talent for comedy. This trick of digging a hole really made him laugh. Daigo didn't find it strange and explained, Densi's combo skills are indeed powerful, but skills themselves have great limitations. For example, Earthquake, no matter how powerful it is, it can't hit Pokémon flying in the sky. As long as you can find the right method, most moves can be cracked, and the same goes for combos. Chen Shi nodded slightly. Daigo said that's right. In the real world, everything is possible. No skill is invincible. Your electric light is really powerful, but if I use a trick called digging a hole, how should you deal with it? In the field, the Rentgen Cat, who had little physical strength left, soon fell in front of Lucario. Denji then sent out a Quasi-King Raichu. Sharona didn't give him any chance at all. With the blessing of 2 sword dances, Lucario defeated Raichu successfully after a lot of effort. Raichu has lost his ability to fight. The winner of this game is Sharona. Denji sighed, I still lost to you. Sharona nodded slightly, took back Lucario, and walked directly to the passage behind. Ha ha ha, I told you, the winner in the end will definitely be Sharona. Bullshit, you clearly supported Denji at the beginning. It's not that I didn't, don't talk nonsense, I have always supported Sharona. Okay, stop arguing, they are all our Sinnoh players anyway. That's right, Sharona is the strongest, her Garchomp hasn't appeared yet, I think Sharona is definitely a strong contender for the championship. And our Kanto region's Yulongdu, he became a senior investigator a long time ago, and his strength is terrifying. Our Hoenn region's Daigo and Chen Shi are not bad either, they are both famous geniuses. Our Kalos region, our Galar region, countless discussions rang out in the audience, from discussing Sharona and Denji at the beginning, to talking about who will win the final championship in the end. No one was convinced by anyone, and people from different regions argued fiercely. Congratulations, you have won another game successfully. Sharona smiled and accepted Chen Shi's congratulations. Dao interrupted at this time, today's games are over, why don't we go back? How about having a big dinner to celebrate in the evening? Farong's eyes lit up, okay, then let's go. She ran out impatiently. Chen Shi reminded. Your night demon is still being treated by Miss Joy. Oh, Farong slapped her forehead. Wait for me, I'll bring Xiaoling back. After that, she ran out in a hurry. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.